Well, hello, and welcome to the Horror Screams podcast, part of the Horror Screams Video Vault website. Episode 32 is upon us already. Welcome, and thanks for joining us. We're actually joined today by the full team. We're joined by regular co-host Sarah. Hi, Sarah. How's it going?
Hello, I'm good, thank you.
Marvelous. It's September. It's September the something when we're recording this. The 16th. Gosh.
Yes.
What a year
Almost
it's been.
Octobermas.
Yes, Octobermas starts here. Marvelous. Yes. We're joined by Pete, the
Hello, people.
originator
Back
of
again.
this whole thing. Welcome,
Yes,
Pete.
exactly.
How you doing?
Want to bring some country charm back to it.
Oh,
Enough
and
of
some
this
sex.
Norfolk nonsense.
Yes, we're all from Norfolk, which is a
A hilly place part
part
of the
England.
UK. Yes.
We do not have so much family trees as stumps.
Yes.
It's funny and it's true. We won't take your like round here. You're not from around these parts. And yes, we are very hilly. It's a curse of this county. Just because you're in some flat land. You're in Gloucestershire, right? They're all from Gloucestershire, don't they?
Everybody that sounds like me from Gloucestershire.
Yes.
Yes, that's how it works. Somerset, Dorset, Cornwall, everybody that sounds like this is from the same Devon. Shire, yeah. Basically, the whole of Southwest is Gloucestershire. Yeah, that is correct, yeah.
Excellent. It's good to have you here with your weird number of fingers. Who has 4 fingers on each hand, honestly?
How many do you have?
Hang on a minute. You've got that?
6, 9.
Oh, I wanted to hook for a hand.
Well, the fact that you lot can do 6 times table on one hand is very disturbing.
Impossible to do much with these feet, though. Jesus.
They are webbed. You can go swimming. To be fair, well, you know, when Norfolk goes underwater, you'll all be ready. So think of it that way.
Yeah.
We'll survive everything. We will.
Yes,
yeah, we'll be all right.
You've watched your biography film, Kevin Costner, in that Waterworld film.
God created Norfolk to test the faithful.
He works in mysterious ways, doesn't he?
He does.
Pete, not God. Yes.
Yes, I work in mysterious ways as well.
So I've heard. Yes, that alternate website you run is quite extraordinary. Man, how do you fit all of that in there?
What, the OnlyFans page?
Yes. Got like a whole Volvo in there somehow.
It's more of a Corsa, but yeah.
Oh, I believe the review most expressed it was nightmarishly elastic.
Yes, that's how I like to like Fantastic Four. I'm Mr. Fantastic, but in a stretchy way, even stretchy
Stretch
way.
Man.
Yeah.
What is that stretchy guy called? Is he called Stretch? Because
Mr. Fantastic.
Oh, is that? Oh, I'm with you. Okay.
They was really original when they tried to figure out his name.
But there's one called. I've totally forgot. Jessica Alba's in that? Do you remember when Jessica Alba would be in everything? You'd be like, well, I'm going to see this rubbish because Jessica Alba's in it.
Yes.
Well, she went into business, didn't she? I think she does like organic like nappies or something like that, and she's made an absolute fortune. So she doesn't really need to act anymore.
Wow.
Who wants to eat a nappy?
Who eats her and organic nappies?
No, like, you know, kind of like mums who knit their own yogurt. You know, she appeals to that demographic, which is
okay, nice.
Yeah, those sort of people.
So the Gwyneth Paltrow part of the internet.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Gwyneth Paltrow. She doesn't get mentioned enough on this podcast. We'll have a Gwyneth Paltrow episode, I think.
We should just review the Goop website. That would be enough horror to traumatize most people.
The horror. Wow. Yeah. It's good. I'm glad Jessica Alba's doing well. I always wished her well. Yeah. Oh, well, anyway. Well, thanks for joining us, Pete. And, of course, we are joined by a return of Blast from the Past, is what they say. Matt. Matt's back for the first time since February. Hello, Matt.
Hello.
Where have you been, man? How are you doing?
Oh, I'm good. Yeah.
You might want to tell people his last name, Stephen, because, you know, he hasn't been on in a while, and he does have other things to be promoting. So.
Oh, do we do? Oh, yes. It's not just Matt. He's got 2 names.
Blissett,
3. Yeah. It's Matt Sandra Blissett. Hi, Matt Blissett. Middle name Sandra is genuinely true. Unusual.
Stephen, you promised you'd never say that on the podcast.
Say my name. Oops. Yes, Matt. Well, Matt, of course, is not just a podcast guest, of which he is of a fine caliber, but he's also a writer. And what are you working on at the moment, Matt?
So
how's it going?
So early next year, I've spent this year revising the already published first two books in the Ron Brandywood sequence and the third, and I'm doing them as an omnibus edition, which is coming out January, February next year. The editing's all done for that. I'm also working on a new project, which is an interpretation of the myth of Lilith.
Oh, okay.
So I've been deep in the weeds on that, and it's certainly, as well as Babylonian mythology, is really, really rich. And also I found, like, in the story of Lilith, some really, really interesting subtexts, and also just a way to work through my interests, which is things that I've not seen in literature, which sounds really pretentious, but mostly I just want to entertain myself, and then by proxy entertain other people. So I've just been doing the work.
Splendid. Wow. And you're enjoying it, obviously.
Oh God, yeah, absolutely.
Nice. And so have you significantly changed them in the re-editing and
Yeah,
getting ready for the
it was
omnibus?
a really, really good experience in the editor I was working with. So I fleshed out a lot more of the setting. Certainly, as well as there's a bit more of a defined cosmology to it now, in terms of the more kind of the fantasy elements that were perhaps a little bit more traditional. I've moved away from and amplified and pared down. So in terms of the actual story itself, it still follows the same beats, but in terms of the things that I've added to it and fleshed out, it's going to be a much richer experience on the page than previously. Not that I'm not proud of it, but
Yep.
I came back to it with the experience of having written them and going, okay. And then when the concept of an omnibus edition was put to me, it made sense. So the way I view it is the aim is to do it as kind of like a box set.
Yeah.
And then, so it'll be the first three, and then 4 to 6 I've already started on, as well as the Lilith project. So it's just been sort of time spent tapping away at the keyboard until the page bleeds on my forehead does.
It's a good sign.
Yeah.
Marvelous. And where can people find this, or indeed your stuff generally?
Well, there is my website, mbbblissett.com, and also I am on Amazon under MB Blissett. I have my fiction there, and also I've done diaries and journals and such for different areas, just as an experiment. But my fiction in the main is available on Amazon in ebook or print.
Excellent. Well, that's splendid. Thanks, Matt. And we're about to discuss Last House on the Left in both of its incarnations, but in the interest of self-promotion, Sarah, hey, tell us about your little thing that you're involved in or connected to, your little zombie-based thingamabob.
My little zombie. Yeah, well, I keep trying to update it more than I have recently,
Yes.
but yes, I am still cracking on with Brain Bites. It's doing pretty well. I'm having a lot of fun going through my zombie movie collection at the moment, and it's not going to stop anytime soon because I've got so much that I still want to see. But yeah, it's been loads of fun. I want to make sure that I get everything right, so I'm making sure that I do rewatch everything. And recently, I watched Yummy again on Shudder, which is a brilliant Belgian zombie splattery, amazing, brilliant boob job, plastic surgery, zombies, gut munching, amazing thing, which is just so much fun, and it was really good to watch that. So I've got some other stuff coming up for it as well. Speaking of books and stuff, I've had a couple of authors get hold of me that do their own kind of like zombie apocalypse stories and stuff, and have asked me if I'd review their books. So yeah, I'm gonna have some book reviews coming up.
That's
so that's kind of cool.
Nice.
I've been listening to them on Audible as well, because as much as I love to read, reading is great, but I just don't have time to sit and read a book. So I've been listening to like the audio book versions whilst I'm doing other stuff. And yeah, so far I'm having a lot of fun with it. So yeah, it's good fun.
Nice. Yummy's really good. I'm glad you're covering that.
It's
but
brilliant.
Then there's an endless stream of stuff coming out or
Absolutely.
existing. Mental,
Yeah,
isn't it?
there's still loads of ones that I haven't seen as well. You know, one will flag up that just completely passed me by, and I'll be like, when, you know, how did I miss that?
Yes.
So
And you know,
there's always plenty out there.
Yeah, massively. And you know what? I kind of admittedly poo-pooed it, not literally, before watching it, but when it kind of comes in your direction, the French remake of One Cut of the Dead is actually I really enjoyed it. It was shown
Yeah,
at
you said.
Fright Fest.
Yeah.
Final Cut. Is it Final? Yeah, Final Cut it's called. And it does clever things, and it's very French, and it's actually very funny. So yeah, that's going to be interesting to hear your view on that, especially as a remake of something so recent as well.
Absolutely. I haven't covered any of the Korean ones yet, because I was trying to think of a way of doing that, you know, maybe doing like a month's worth of it. But now that one's come out, I think I might kind of like put them up against each other. So do the original Korean one and then the French one and stuff, and go with that. And probably the same for Train to Busan as well. When they do the other version of that, the American version of that might.
Oh, are they doing an American version of that?
Yes.
Apparently
they are.
Why?
I know.
Train to Seattle.
Yeah, probably. Hopefully Zack Snyder has nothing to do with it. And obviously, yes, there's going to be a whole multiverse of his recent Army of the Dead movies, as well as them coming out.
No one's asked for it. No one wants
No one has asked for it. Nobody wants them.
In fact, we're asking, we will pay him off to not do them.
Please don't.
Money's no object.
I think one phrase is probably the motivation of that. Cocaine is a hell of a drug.
It's the only explanation.
It's probably what I'd have to take to watch them again.
The horror.
You should sue him, Sarah.
Yeah.
Yes. There probably is a good case. There might be something in that actually. Excellent. And finally, before we go to the thigh-slapping good time that is The Last House on the Left duo, Pete, as well as being the proprietor and thingy and showrunner and stuff of Horror Screens Video Vault, what are you up to these days, and what have you got coming?
I have various things going on. I'm writing several different film scripts at the same time because, you know, why not? I'm currently building another website, which is going to be predominantly 1979 downwards in the horror genre, which will open up in, I'm hoping to have it up by Halloween of this year. And that will be from beyondthegrave.co.uk. So it's a bit like similar to our Horror Screens Video Vault, but it'll have more articles and that kind of stuff. More in depth kind of thing to the pretentious lot of us in the horror genre. The people want to know more in depth kind of stuff. So there won't be like Horror Screens Video Vault has the reviews and they're like in the capsule format. This would be more in depth, more like you would find in more like, I don't know, like We Belong Dead, for instance, or stuff like that kind of thing. And I've got some other stuff going on at the moment, but I can't say about that because I'm in talks with a few people, which I can't talk about at the moment. So
wait, are you restarting your porn career?
That didn't stop.
Oh, just checking. Phew,
if you go to Pornhub /
yes.
Pete.
Yes.
Pete,
I've sent you the link already, Sarah. Don't worry.
Oh, okay, thanks. Cool. Got it.
Phew.
Opening it now. How's Jim of the Dead going?
Jim of the Dead is going okay. I'm currently looking for another director to do the main wraparound because unfortunately the original director had to drop out for personal reasons, so I won't go into that. So so everything else is on the movement, but of course I think Jim of the Dead's got a bit of a curse going on it because the first time it started going around, COVID hit, and now we're in the middle of a financial crisis. So
it will eventually get off the ground eventually. Yes.
Yeah, eventually. Yes. But
it will happen.
It's basically the same. It was originally going to be a full-length feature thing, but obviously COVID happened, now the financial things happened, so I've scrapped the original idea and turned it more into a anthology-esque type thing, but it's still set in the gym, but everybody's stories are now intertwined within the gym. And
Cool.
the original idea of Jim are Dead, I will be turning into either a short story and writing it, or turn it into maybe a slightly longer story for a paperback. That's the idea,
Nice.
anyway.
Cool.
In amongst all the other things.
Marvelous. And we should say that's Jim as in gymnasium, not like Jim Davidson
Yeah,
or something.
not Jim. Yeah. Dime.
Excellent.
Or I'll be dead before.
Oh, excellent. Well, thanks, Pete. And I do like the pre-1979 stuff. And if you want someone to write about Trog, I'm very happy to do that.
I've already asked Eric from We Belong Dead. He's very much looking forward to it.
Yes, that bitch, Eric. Right,
Wow.
He'll
Get
never
a
know I said
new editor over in We Belong Dead, and suddenly Stephen's turned heel.
That heathen. Yes, he wouldn't swallow. Anyway,
did you want to promote your website that you do stuff on as well, Stephen? Before we jump onto the thing?
Well, if you insist. Yes.
Okay, maybe not. Right, move on. Next one.
Hang on. Oh no, this has been a total stitch up.
You had your chance.
God damn it! It's just like being at home. Wait, I am at home. Yes. So as well as things and stuff, I help to run a website called cinemacabre.co.uk. Macabre as in sinister. And it's kind of not dissimilar to what we we're just talking about. It's kind of devoted, not necessarily completely, but largely to older stuff. So from the silent era onwards, it's just two of us running it. So added new stuff is sometimes quite slow because of, as you'll know, Sarah and Pete as well. You'll know it's a little tricky to spin those plates. However, we do regular daily posts, which seem to be getting a lot of attention. We have a decent number of views, and the emphasis is on kind of meatier, a bit like what Pete's saying as well, meatier stuff. We don't tend to do reviews, although there's a few shorter things on there. We tend to do kind of longer articles. So there's a big one I wrote about Peeping Tom recently, and another one about the two versions of Cape Fear, which are both really cool films. And so it's more kind of, sounds fucking pretentious, but it's more historical, or it's more kind of in-depth stuff. But ultimately, like anybody, we just like monsters and weird stuff.
I was going to say, there needs to be more websites kind of like that, because people, especially horror fans or people in genre fans, we all like information. The more information we can find out on a project or a film that's currently going out, we're like, oh, that's something, bit of meat to grab hold onto. And then who knows? Exactly. Well, I don't say a bit, I say a lot. But yeah.
It's true, folks. Yes, exactly. Yeah. I mean, part of being a horror fan, as all three of you know, is that kind of desperate need for stuff, including the films one of the films we're talking about tonight. These are interesting things. These are interesting films, and the history of them and the people that made them are often really fascinating. So yeah, that's what it's all about. Reviews are really fun to write, especially for good movies. It's great to kind of celebrate that stuff.
Well, reviews for any sort of movies could be interesting. So whether it's the capsule review format you have on Horror Screams Video Vault, or whether it's the longer format that you have in like We Belong Dead and whatever, both are interesting ways of doing reviews, because the longer one, of course, you can go for as long as possible, but the smaller capsule one, you got to try and give as much information but not giving too much away that would detract people from wanting to watch the movie. Like I said, you always got to find a positive in it. In a whether it's a really crappy movie, there's still got to be at least one positive in it.
Yes, there is. Yeah,
and also from someone who regularly reads and enjoys all three of your work, it's I think really essential to have a degree of curation about what the good stuff is.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's so much. There's I think it's called. There's almost like the tyranny of too much choice, and you can enjoy, the horror equivalent of a greasy kebab at 3:00 in the morning, but sometimes you want a filet mignon, and it's really good to particularly with the the articles that you three have written, I've picked up a ton of great films just off the recommendations of the three of you over time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So for someone who's more of a someone who consumes it, and but also as well as the quality of writing that you three bring to it, it shows that horror is not just the literary equivalent or the cinematic equivalent of a tax dodge. It deals with really primal stuff like the film we're going to talk about tonight in both its versions.
Mhm.
And I think it's important to say, hey, look, it's not just someone walking around stiffly in a mask. There can be a hell of a lot to it.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, and always has been, and,
Hmm.
and we've been following this stuff for decades, haven't we? And that's one reason why the whole elevated horror thing that sprung up a few years ago was so ridiculous and offensive. Was, well, yeah, what the fuck? So Get Out's an elevated horror, yeah, but what about the century of horror cinema before it, which happened to be often extremely good as well? Yeah, absolutely. Well, marvelous. Well, thanks. So yeah, there's a few things for you all to go away and have a look at, but obviously not right now.
Oh, I've already gone.
Oh,
I'm checking out Horror Screen's video. Well, it's a really good website.
Oh, wait a minute, he runs that thing. That's just masturbation, effectively, isn't it? Which, of course, we're all doing right now as well.
Yes, we're all polishing ourselves off. Apart from Sarah,
Tossing
she's polishing something else.
Oh, it's about time you wiped that thing down. Gosh, that cabinet has just got ridiculous. She calls it a cabinet.
Wow, it must be
It's weird.
dusty. Matt's coughing in the background there.
Yeah, good God. It's a nice shade of brown, though. Anyway, so
Okay,
yes.
that's something. You need to go to see the doctor, Sarah. It's not supposed to be that color.
Oh,
Do you live
really?
in the same village?
It's
I
a,
might be able to see it.
it's a nice mahogany, but sort of going too far.
Okay,
But,
I'll get it checked out. Thanks for the advice, guys. Thanks
You
for the
never
advice.
know. Better safe than sorry, as they say.
Well, you won't get a GP appointment anyway, so you're probably dead before you got sex worked out.
I'm sure
You
I'll
get a
get one
phone
on
appointment.
Monday.
There you go, phone appointment. There you go. You take a picture of it. You pervert. Go to my OnlyFans page. You want that?
I love the approach now. I think it's fun. Yeah, the doctors are doing nothing. They're all fucked off. They're all at home, aren't they? Just wanking themselves silly. Oh yeah, I'll call you at some point tomorrow. What?
Send me a picture of your pussy vagina. Yes. You're
you
not
sure
really a
you're a
doctor,
doctor?
are you?
It's yes. We've got at that stage now.
Welcome to the AHS. Yes.
Yes, indeed. The finest in the world. And it was on a bus once. Anyway, so yes, it's the episode all about the last house on the left.
The Last House on the
definite
Left, yeah.
article is important. So yes, there are two versions separated by 37 years. And we've been talking a lot about porn, and it's important to say that Wes Craven, of course, was sometimes known as the fabulously named Abe Snake, and was making porn films, and apparently had some mysterious involvement in Deep Throat 2. Not Deep Throat 2, Deep Throat as well.
Deep Throat, yeah.
Deep Throat 2, much more disappointing. Not as deep and very throaty. But yeah, Wes Craven began here before he made films with Meryl Streep. Yes, I've seen Music of the Heart because I wanted to. He was making films like The Last House on the Left. And do you know what the shocking thing is, Matt?
Go on.
The Last House on the Left is now even older than the Universal. Well, it's even older, yes, than the Universal horror films I was watching in the 80s as a child.
God.
It's 50 years old.
Yes, it is. It's 50 years old this year. In fact, it was 50 years old just turned last month. Yeah, last month.
Yeah, it began appearing.
And
back
yet,
in
the thing of it is, the thing of it is because obviously I watched both of them again in preparation for this. Is the 1972 one disturbed me way more than the 2009 one did.
Massively.
Just simply because it's. Dennis Iliadis did a good job, right? It's competent. It's a competent cast. Tony Goldwyn turns up, and anything Tony Goldwyn does, he always brings like a really, really solid performance. Garrett Dillahunt, I think I've seen him in a lot of things, and I always enjoy what he does. But You know, I didn't know who any of these people were in Last House on the Left in the 72 version, but that stayed with me a lot longer than the 2009 one did.
Yeah, I think that's it. And I think you said it, and we'll come to the 2009 version, but competent is maybe as far as I would go in terms of praise of it. But yeah, the original is astonishing. Wes Craven's directorial debut, a notorious film that was effectively banned in the UK, at least in its uncut version, until 2008 was the first time the BBFC allowed the uncut version through, even though several years earlier they had passed the French film Irreversible, which has a 10-minute long, one single take rape scene that seems to go on for an eternity and is far more graphic than anything in the relatively restrained Last House on the Left, which is interesting in itself because it says a lot about censorship. If it's in a French film watched by middle classes, it's okay, but if it's in this horror film, I don't want the poor people watching this. Is pretty much the attitude that's always been around with this stuff. But yeah, it's an amazing film. I think it's, as Matt said, I think it holds up incredibly well. When you looking at some of the interviews with Wes and the extras on the DVD, something that he set out with his fellow actors, a couple of whom were porn veterans, to make a deliberately outrageous film it was conceived with amusement and how much they could get away with. And I think that really shows, not just in the violent content, but in what I think is the genuinely funny stuff around that, whether it's the ridiculous parents, the ridiculous mailman at the start. Oh, she sure is the prettiest 17-year-old I've ever known. Cut to shower scene with her boobs. To the hilarious dinner table scene at the end, or near the end. Yeah, I think it's great. But it's also one which, of course, because it was banned in our country for so long, video nasties and all of that going on, one that was hard to see, or at least hard to see in a decent looking version. So when was the first time you watched The Last House on the Left, Pete? Do you recall?
Yes, I do remember it. I managed to find it. I believe it was in the back. It used to be in the back of Dark Side magazine. There was a little advert for somebody who would copy films onto just before DVDs just came out. They do give you a bootleg copy of a movie for X amount of money, and I managed to get a copy of it, like fourth bootleg version of it, and it was still had, like, I think it was French subtitles or maybe Danish subtitles at the bottom. So it was interesting to watch because you're just watching it through a haze of sort of tracking problems and the color going in and out, which probably added more to the actual aspects of the movie. Actually, come to think of it, because now, of course, we see it now in a shiny, like, digital version of it, which sort of pulls away from what the movie's supposed to be. It's supposed to be that sort of are we supposed to be watching this type of movie? And now you see it in this digital version of it. It sort of detracts from it, which is why I always think the remake seemed a bit pointless. But we'll come to that later. But yeah, that was the first time I watched it, and since then I've seen its various different versions of it. The KRUG cut and the extended versions and all that. But there's loads of these sort of movie, rape revenge type of movies. Notoriously, this and I Spit on Your Grave is the two biggest ones that people would name. But do you remember, is it Demented or Deranged? It's something like that. There was a UK version as title as well, which has a woman getting raped in a barn by people that dressed in like milkman type costumes. It's very bizarre.
Confessions of a Rapist.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't that. It wasn't a Channel 5 special.
The rape revenge horror. I mean, there's all sorts, isn't it, from around the world. There's everything from Thriller, A Cruel Picture, with they call her One Eye, isn't it?
They call her One Eye,
which
Tarantino
is obviously indebted to with Kill Bill and
I know what you mean. Quentin Tarantino has all his ideas are very original.
Straw Dogs as well.
Straw Dogs before this, What the amazing period of cinema this was. Straw Dogs was in 1971. It's interesting that Sadie sings Singing in the Rain in the Bath in Last House on the Left, because it was about a year after A Clockwork Orange, which of course has a memorable home invasion and sexual assault set to the classic Gene Kelly Jolly Singing in the Rain love song. So yeah, I mean, all this stuff was going on. It was a time of kind of relaxed censorship and things like Ken Russell's The Devils, which you still can't see in an uncut version even today because Warner Brothers is still scared of doing anything with it. Yeah, but you're right.
That's Wes Craven's. I didn't notice years back, but it's something I read in. I think it might have been that. I can't remember. Dennis, what's the name of that? The author who did the Last House on the Left book about the making
Oh,
of. Is it
yeah,
Dennis or is it David? Also, I can't remember.
David Sulskin, is that him?
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, it's
Sorry,
mentioned in
David.
that this is basically Wes Craven's version of Ingmar Bergman's The Virgin Spring.
Yeah,
which
is a haunting film. Yeah,
I've never seen before, and I went to go watch it a few years back before this recent Arrow release came out of it. And yeah, you can see where he got his inspiration from and all that kind of thing. So yeah, basically every period of movie history has had something to this equivalent. Maybe not as harsh, but it's had something that you can kind of go, oh, I see where they got their inspiration from. Where the 2009 one got their inspiration from, I have no idea, but we'll come to that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's the classic thing, isn't it? We moan about remakes now, but pretty much remakes were what Hollywood history was built upon. You know, there were versions of Frankenstein before Karloff, obviously, and there were many versions of everything. You know, Macbeth, the Virgin Spring is a really harrowing watch as well, with Max von Sydow and this overall sense of despair. Strangely, no comic relief chickens in the Virgin Spring.
Why not?
Which I thought was disappointing.
Well, that was clearly what was missing.
Yeah, the original cut, I think, had the chickens. But yeah, well, Bergman's sort of horror leanings to Hour of the Wolf is geez, really disturbing. But yes, yeah, this didn't come from nowhere. This is, like you said, his version of the Virgin Spring, shot through with the Manson family, which in 1972 was a very recent event, and the trial, in fact, started a year or so before the movie, and Vietnam, which he says he was inspired by the documentarians working out in the Vietnam War. But yeah, watching it,
just to go back to what Matt was saying earlier, I think with this one, the original one, is the fact that unless you had been watching porn films, because that's why Matt said a lot of these people were from porn films originally, or either in front of or behind the camera, a lot of these people you wouldn't even recognize. So this feels more like, this one gets more underneath your skin because you're watching it as more like a voyeur kind of thing going on. Whereas the remake, the trouble is you've seen these actors in stuff before. Like the guy who plays KRUG in the remake, I know him from being the Terminator in the Sarah Connor Chronicles.
And you've also got Aaron Paul in it as well, Ricky Lindo.
Yeah, exactly.
Really good stand-up comedian. And I think someone you really hit the nail on the head with someone there, Pete, is with the original, the camera is almost another character.
Yes, exactly.
And one of the things that I think why so many filmmakers return to this genre, and I mean there's the Retaliators, which is just I haven't seen it yet.
That's great.
It feels very much like
film.
kind of like a heavy metal version of this kind of thing. It's something that happens like every single day. It's a primal fear. I mean, I like the kind of Lovecraftian. I like the faceless shape stalking teenager genre of things. But this is something where you watch it and you think like you're one bad day from this happening to somebody. And you kind of go like, well, what would I do in that situation? And the minute you think that, the filmmaker's got you.
Well, also with the original one is the fact that the remake, everything's all pristine and it's all staged. And you know exactly where it's going to go. You can tell that everybody's. Whereas the original, it just feels like the camera's just there in the most awkwardest situation as possible. Nothing's really staged. You obviously know it's a film, but you can imagine how it would have been on the cinema screens in the 70s. Obviously, you had The Exorcist and that kind of stuff coming out then, or the shock value. But this would have been a real gut punch type of movie because it's not something people would have expected to see on the screen. Somebody being raped and carved into and all that kind of stuff.
And also the extremity was part of the marketing, wasn't it? Because wasn't this the film where the tagline was "Keep telling yourself it's only a movie"?
Yeah,
I'd like
yeah.
Keep
Mm.
repeating
there is
it's
something
only a
in that,
movie.
there is something to me in that kind of marketing that particularly as well, because horror traditionally tends to be like it was for me like it was an adolescent rite of passage. Me and my best friend basically worked our way through the horror section in Maglan Video in Galston, and it was kind of like egging each other on. Oh, what should we rent this week? What do we dare ourselves to sit and watch? And not because we weren't disturbed in the slightest, but it was very much like a kind of a test in yourself to see what you could endure in the same way like people really like roller coaster rides. It's an adrenaline rush for 90 minutes and you sort of come away thinking, wow, that was quite something. You may not necessarily enjoy it in the moment, but you find things to enjoy like the special effects or particularly inventive kills, or in this case the kind of shambolic, shocking nature of it, which the 2009 one, I say competent. It's not really a compliment. It's it's kind of like a mustard burp. The 2009 one. It's vaguely tangy for a second, and then you forget about it.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. And I think, I think the movie addresses exactly what you said, Matt, about going to the video shop and thinking, well, we watched blah. How about this? This is next level. This is Texas Chainsaw Massacre or something. The movie has that scene which to me almost plays like what might have been the pitch between Wes Craven and Sean S. Cunningham, which is where Weasel wonders and discusses, well, what is the sex crime of the century, which is essentially that same chat, which is how far have a bunch of rapists gone? Who would get the title of sex criminal of the century?
Yeah, well, it's the same with comedians. Yeah, like George Carlin or Jimmy Carr or anybody that's on the offensive level of being a comedian. They all want to push that level, and once they know the audience have got to that level of being offended, they go, okay, you found that offensive. Let's go one step further. Let's see how far I can push you before you walk out.
And
I like that. I like
there's
that
even
kind
a
of
term
aspect.
for that in stand-up comedy. It's called walking the room.
Yeah.
And like Bill Hicks talked about it exactly as you said. It's like, what's the joke? What's the joke that we call it these days? What's going to get you cancelled?
Yes. What person's going to go, oh my God, you've offended me. I haven't even started saying anything. You've just walked on the stage. But you're wearing tweed, and that's that's appropriating farmers' clothing. What the fuck off?
Yeah, that became a very self-conscious part of the most recent Jimmy Carr show, which was really fun, and same for the Ricky Gervais show, which was commenting on that, which is quite interesting. And it brings out the question: who would actually tune in or go to a show by one of those guys, not expecting that? Which, of course, is the same with horror, the same with a movie marketed like The Last House on the Left, or a film called The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But yeah, it also.
I was expecting it to be a romantic comedy.
Yeah. I spit on your grave. This was horrifying. It opens with a true story disclaimer as well. There was a point in the early 21st century when every other horror film, especially the grungy, nasty, po-faced ones like the terrible Last House on the Left remake, for example, opened with inspired by true events.
Though to be fair, all films or books or music or whatever is all inspired by something's true.
Yeah.
There's something in the film that is true. So there has been a case of a couple of girls being raped by men. That's a fact that happens on a daily basis.
Yes.
Sadly, that still happens.
Therefore, it's a true story.
So, but the way it's told in the film obviously is taking it to a whole new level, because you need, in a film, you don't want to see true stuff. You want to see something slightly exaggerated. It's why you get these biography films and they go, this is all true, and you're like, yeah, but that bit was obviously exaggerated, because would you really want to know the full depth in story? Would you really want to know the whole full in-depth story of the Holocaust if you didn't know the details? No, because people don't want to know. They want to pretend that doesn't exist anymore. Stephen's had people where he's Holocaust deniers. You're like, but it did happen. There's facts behind it. How can you deny something like that? So you have that same sort of thing with these sort of movies.
And I think also, another thing as well, and Pete made a really good point is, like these things happen, and I think the things that these films in this particular, it's almost like a subgenre if you think about it, is you get a bit of closure because you get revenge more often than not. Horrible things happen, and maybe justice gets done, but more often than not it doesn't. Whereas in this one, the rapist gets a chainsaw enema, so you get that bit of catharsis, and maybe the rapist gets defenestrated by somebody's teeth. That gives you a bit of closure, and it kind of gives you. It kind of goes to one of the core things of any story is they're not just entertainment. Stories used to be tools on how to make sense of a senseless world.
Yep.
And even something like, especially something like Last House on the Left, I'm not giving it airs and graces that was never intended, but the bit for me is you earn, you see this young attractive girl get violated, but then you also get to see her parents fucking destroy the people who did it. Even something like an action genre like Taken, that's what you'd call dad porn. Because I was watching that and I was thinking, if my daughter was kidnapped, I'd probably huddle in a corner and cry.
Yeah.
But in when you're watching the film, you're like, yeah, I'd Liam Neeson the shit out of that.
Yeah.
Well, we haven't actually gone into the aspects of what this movie is about, because obviously some people might not actually know what it's about. So, Stephen, do you want to? We don't really need to run down both the films because they're both basically exactly the same. There isn't really much difference in the plot. So, Stephen, do you want to tell people basically what The Last House on the Left is?
Sure.
In so many words.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, The Last House on the Left in both versions is a story of two teenage girls that go off somewhere. In the case of the original, it's hilariously to go and see Bloodlust, which is a in the very comical early scenes with the mum and dad, who are ridiculous. That sounds terrible. And the dad is more offended by his daughter saying the word tits and not wearing a bra than he is by reading the newspaper, which is full of like murders and horrible stuff going on.
The funny thing with the original one, he goes, "You're not wearing a bra, but I'm still going to check out your tits." This is just getting creepy now.
So they are, and I think this is part of the great humor of the film is in pointing out a common theme in Wes Craven's films is the generation gap, whether it's the parents that create the problem in A Nightmare on Elm Street, or indeed, well, and of course also the poor versus the haves and have-nots, which you see in things like The People Under the Stairs later on. But so there's that. So in the original they're going to see Bloodlust, and quite timely, Bloodlust is this unseen kind of rock band that all the parents are scared of because they dismember live chickens on stage. This came soon after the whole kind of false Alice Cooper scandal in 1969 at the Toronto thing, where chickens were thrown into the crowd and they tore them apart. So they go off somewhere. Parents, at least in the original, are kind of parody of sitcom parents. In the new one, in the 2009 one, they're kind of everything seems quite happy. Really, they're a bit boring. So they go off. They hook up.
I'm not sure if they're happy though, because the new one, their son has died, and to me they seem a bit sort of distant to each other.
Yeah, they don't really want her to go out. Whereas in the original, they're like, okay, you're off with Phyllis. She's a bit weird, but that kind of thing. Whereas in the remake and stuff, they're more like, Mary, you need to let us know as soon as you get here. Give us a call, kind of a thing. So they do seem more worried about her than the parents are in the original.
They're definitely more neurotic in the 2009 one.
And they have
like
the
they're more like helicopter parents, whereas in the original one, it feels a little bit like a 70s sitcom almost.
Yeah.
It is. It's
Just like the
obviously
darkest,
bizarre.
messed up sitcom you've ever seen.
Yeah.
So much of it is clearly meant to be funny.
Yeah.
The bullshit about the dead brother in the remake is such a TV movie cliche thing of
Yes.
the backstory. Do you think because they've lost the brother, do you think that somehow in this version Mary will survive at the end?
Well, it's a standard. It's a standard. So one of the books I've been reading recently is Chuck Palahniuk, the guy who wrote Fight Club, wrote this book of like all of the writing lessons he's learned, and it's so much of mainstream filmmaking now follows memorandums and formula because everybody's frightened of failing. So one of the instant ways you can create sympathy for a character, not empathy, sympathy, is have a dead parent or a dead child in the past. And so you could tell, like, probably they sat around in a writer's room going, okay, so we've got Tony Goldwyn, and Tony Goldwyn's agent says he'll do a horror film, but he can't look like a psycho. What are we going to do? We'll have a dead kid in there, so you'll feel sympathetic towards him. So when the horror, so when it gets horrible, you won't feel quite as bad about Tony Goldwyn kicking off. And it tends to be like a conceit, and again, it goes to competent. It's almost like paint by numbers. Whereas last time the 72 version, that's like really good graffiti.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. The remake is very much it's a meeting. It's a bunch of accountants that were trying to put together something. Even though I reckon in 2009 to most teenagers, which is going to be their main audience, Last House on the Left. I mean, it's a vague name that they might know, but I doubt they would have watched the 72 version all the way through because it wouldn't hold up. It's not like something 2009 teenagers have any interest in, as far as I can recall. But yeah, so they go off. They're raped and or murdered by KRUG and the gang, which in the original is David Hess and Jeremy Rain and Fred Lincoln.
Fred Lincoln, yeah.
And
the man who claims that he made most of the movie.
Yeah, I hate the movie. It was responsible for 80 rapes. But yeah, I had a massive part in this and that, and I created that, and I was a big part of this, and I'm the reason for its success. So you've invented 80 rapes that never happened because of this movie, and you're happy to take credit for it.
See, when I was watching the extras and he was gabbling on about taking all his claim for this stuff, I was like, I'm not sure to take what he's saying to be completely truthful or fabricated, because some of the other people were saying, oh yeah, he came up with this. But then is that the case of a lie has been established that much, been told that many times that it becomes the truth, and it's become the truth area? It's like a mass hysteria truth thing going on. So he's kind of mind melded with the other people to kind of go, this is what happened. Wes Craven had nothing to do with it. It was all me. I created Last House on the Left. That's how it's coming across as.
Yeah, and of course, it was such a low-budget film that was made on the hoof, and Craven admitted there was a bunch of improvisation going on, which you can tell as well in the movie. There's every chance, I suppose, everybody chipped in, although I would say what gets forgotten maybe about Craven is that with his early films, which he often edited himself, he was a really good editor, and this movie is, I think, part of it. It's in and out in about 80 minutes. There's no fat in it, really, because I still think the sheriff stuff's actually quite amusing, which we'll come to. But I think Craven was a big part of it. But maybe he was involved in some crucial decisions.
I think there's a percentage of truth in what he's saying, but maybe not as much as what he's giving himself credit for.
Yeah, and to be ridiculous and come up with this, might as well have plucked it out of thin air. Oh, and because of this movie, which I hate, 80 women got raped.
Well, this is the Mary Whitehouse excuse of stuff, isn't it?
Entirely.
And
make
the whole
up some shit.
Yeah, make it up. Oh, this happened because this happened. But the Bulger case. How do we not know that they went into there and they saw, I don't know, The Little Mermaid, Pinocchio, a load of other Disney stuff on the shelf. Oh, but there's that one Child's Play video on there. Oh, that must have been it. It wasn't Pinocchio that sent him off the edge.
Yeah, which mass hysteria as usual, isn't it?
If you've ever read, there's a fantastic book by a guy called Steven Pinker called "The Better Angels of Our Nature" or "Better Angels," and when you sort of hear all this stuff about oh, they watched this movie and it inspired them, how do you explain the fact that early civilizations were violent on a scale that even the most meth-addled violence addict could not imagine? You look at like the Aztecs, who sacrificed because they fancied a bit of better weather.
Yeah.
They weren't huddled around reenacting ye olde child's play. They did it because they believed that was the way to get things done in their structure, and war was a way of life. And I think because as Pinker shows in the book, we've gotten a lot more peaceful. It doesn't seem like it because we're more aware of what violence does happen in the world through media and the internet and such. And I think rather than say, hey, look, it's part of the human condition, and some people can't control themselves to the point that they hurt other people, it's far easier to go, hey, we'll just blame Wes Craven. Rather than take responsibility and say, well, what violence is there in my heart as a human being? I'll blame someone who perhaps wanted to entertain or provoke, which is not a bad thing in itself. I mean, even like literary greats like Franz Kafka said that sometimes art has to be an axe cracking through the ice on a river. And I find that I find that like because the whole Mary Whitehouse thing, it's a really, really sad, laboured idea that also denies human agency as well.
Yeah, entirely. And with the Jamie Bolger thing was mass hysteria again, wasn't it? It's obviously much easier to blame something that you can control, and in this case they were genuinely burning videos of Child's Play 3. Sounds familiar. In the for the tabloid headlines, than it is to consider that yes,
well, it's like a lot of things.
Can be a total bastard and murder.
Well, it's an ego thing as well, isn't it? Because when these people say I blame this, it's like Anthony Jeselnik, one of my favourite stand-up comedians, does this bit. Like whenever there's a tragedy and people tweet or post thoughts and prayers, what they're really saying is, don't forget about me.
Yeah.
Don't forget about me on this awful day, the someone's worst day. Don't forget about me right now because I care, and you should know that. And I think it's the same with this kind of faux moral indignation.
It's the same with social media, though, isn't it? It's somebody puts up on, I don't know, say Facebook. They don't put anything else. They just put having a bad day. That's it. If there are anything else, you're guaranteed that's only written there because they want a load of people to get in touch with them to find out what's going on. It's just basically to see if people care about you and that kind of stuff.
Inbox me, babes.
Yeah. Whereas me personally, I like to keep my problems to myself. I use social media for, well, basically writing stuff and website stuff. My personal stuff is my personal stuff. I keep that to myself.
Well, Pete, that's because we're robust enough to know that one that sharing like that is performative, and like if you've suffered to any degree mentally or physically, you know full well that sharing is performative when really it's just talking to the right person who's willing to listen.
Exactly.
And the fact that we've all suffered in life, and that usually means we've genuinely suffered, and therefore we have absolutely zero tolerance for that bullshit. Pardon my friend. Just I see that, and my inner reaction is I just think I sometimes write stuff down on paper of things I feel, whereas some people would post it. I just write it down, look at it, and think, yeah, that's fucking stupid, and just throw it away. It's so much healthier, and I actually talk to people. People shouldn't use Facebook for therapy. It's very bad for that.
Yes.
Actually, if you're struggling, talk to somebody. It's remarkable how much more effective that is.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Indeed.
it's
in some cases, like Matt does, he's a writer, so he might inject some of his own personal anguish or whatever into his
dude.
stories, or filmmakers do it as well.
Yeah,
The amount of filmmakers that have mental issues or something that's traumatized them in their past, they chuck into their films because
every
that's
portrait is a
therapy for them.
self-portrait.
Yeah.
And every portrait is an X-ray, and one of the things is, and we've probably all experienced this, and certainly as well, I've seen, like, in all of the reviews you guys have written, there's always been points where you've really nailed something that the filmmaker may not necessarily have consciously intended, but you can see it and like illuminates it, and it makes the film a little bit special, a little bit like special sauce on it.
Well, sometimes the filmmakers make stuff like you just said. They do it, and it's actually injected into the film.
Yeah,
and it's not until somebody points it out that they go, "I never noticed that. I never noticed I injected my personal, anguish or whatever into the film." I was just, it's for me at the time of making the film. I felt it was the right thing to do. But now looking back at it as somebody else, I can go, "Oh, actually, I can see myself being put into that film, whether that was their intention or not. It's now there for everybody to see."
And I think it was Pete, you said it earlier when you said about like the generation gap, like that was really key in Nightmare on Elm Street, because nobody believed the kids, and the adults had committed the crime that ultimately the kids were paying for, but there was that generation gap, and in that gap, monsters are born. I think Goya said the sleep of reason brings forth monsters, and like it's a key thing with some of Craven's work was that he exploited that, parents just don't understand, and but you take it to the logical and therefore entertaining extreme of, parents just don't understand to the point, and that's what get the kids killed.
Yeah, indeed. And in Last House on the Left, of course, it's a bit like The Hills Have Eyes, which is two families from different classes, cannibals in the later one, and in this one, the unofficial family of Sadie and co that are brought together. And actually, I think he's got sympathy for the antagonists in both this and The Hills Have Eyes to some extent.
Yeah.
And there are moments in Last House on the Left that shows that, and certainly Hills Have Eyes, which is
definitely in the original one, because you have the moment where Phyllis is already gone, and then Mary gets raped, and then they get the carving thing, and then you get that moment where KRUG and all that realize that they've gone too far. You have that bit where you don't want to, but you feel a bit of an emotion towards KRUG and all that, which then makes whether it says a lot about you as a person or not, that's a whole different thing. That's another whole Sigmund Freud thing. But as for a film, it's a personal thing, because you don't want to be connected to that. But in the end of the day, we are all animals. We all have that potential in us. It's just we've become more civilized. A bit like Matt was saying, you have the Aztecs doing what they did, chopping off heads for sending them down the pyramids for a good crop this year. We've become more civilized with what we do. But when we see something like that, our animal instincts are, "Ooh, I would do what? How would you react in that situation?" So your reaction is, "Oh, I care for what's happening to the girl." But then you see how they're reacting as well. So you have that human battle between yourself. Who are you really going to care for? Because both sides have something that you may feel emotionally connected to, whatever that may be.
Entirely, yeah. That particular moment, a lingering bit with KRUG, where you can see he's realised that he's done something awful and regrets it as much as he can. It's really powerful, I think, and it reminds, because they're not monsters.
Nope.
Different to let's say the punks in the Death Wish films, which came a bit later in the first Death Wish. I mean, they're all irredeemable bastards that Charles Bronson knows
on the
down.
train.
Yeah, or wherever they are.
They're on a train. They're on a train, and they get all sort of arsey with him, and he's like, "Eh."
do you believe in Jesus?
Yeah.
which I think that's the Death Wish films are great fun actually in a lot of ways. Again, they don't shy away from some really grim stuff like this film doesn't shy away from. But yeah, Charles Bronson becoming in his 50s or whatever it was, becoming this hero in 70s New York urban hell is one of the pleasures of that period. But yeah, entirely. Yeah, David Hess's character is terrifying, as David Hess tends to be in most films, and he's pretty intimidating in real life too.
Well, apparently, like one of the things that sort of was like a little bit of controversy to the original was obviously Peabody said that there was a lot of a push, not even from Craven, but from Hess. She identified as he kind of was wanting to push the envelope to kind of give a more realistic performance, I suppose. Which then goes into which is a really interesting conversation to have about where do you draw the line. At what point are you trying to establish? It's almost like someone to think about what this is like the earlier, rougher kind of 70s stuff. A few decades later, it forms the roots of movements like Dogmate 95 and such. Whereas Craven did it because he could get as much bang for his buck out of $100,000, but then you get filmmakers now go, I could spend 15 million, but I want to do it like this as an affectation. And I think sometimes the later stuff loses the energy of necessity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, entirely. And that's a big part of this film's power, I think. So Sarah.
Hello.
So give us
your I'm still here.
So this movie, and I think it does hold up. I know that you possibly think differently, but I think it does hold up in its outrageous mix of tones, from this comedy sitcom parents that we've talked about, to the sheriff we haven't yet mentioned and his deputy. With Martin Cove as well as the deputy from Karate Kid, to this kind of midsection before the comedy revenge, and it is I still think it's a comedy revenge with the hilarious castration. But in the midsection is the harrowing bit where it feels like the world is ending, not just because of the humiliation of Phyllis and Mary, but also because of that moment with KRUG where you think, fuck, he's not a monster, he's a human being, and he's kind of regretful right now, so I can't completely demonize him. So where do you stand? But first, where did you first watch Wes Craven's Last House on the Left?
I'm very new to watching it. I literally watched it for this podcast.
Well, that's mind-blowing, man. That
I know.
In many ways, that's great.
It's never been like that kind of the rape revenge like genre has never been on my radar. It's never been something I've been interested in, because it's just so uncomfortable. It's difficult to describe. I can't say that Last House on the Left is a good film because it's so uncomfortable. But it's done so well in making you feel uncomfortable.
Yes.
It doesn't matter how many times. I mean, I've watched it once and I don't ever want to watch it again. I don't need to watch it again as far as I'm concerned. But I can just imagine that, watching it like for the first time or the fifth time, you would still feel just as uncomfortable. So, it's done an amazing job in making you feel the way that it makes you feel. A lot of films try to recreate that, but this one, it just does it the best. But it's just so excruciatingly uncomfortable. But then I have problems with quite a lot. I have a lot of problems with the acting.
Well, I was going to add on in two ways. We're all talking as from a male perspective of seeing the rape scene. Obviously, for a female, seeing a woman being raped is going to be even more personal. So having a woman on a podcast like this, it makes it quite an interesting aspect. And also the fact that this is your first time seeing it, you saying you wouldn't want to see it again. This what makes these sort of podcasts interesting is the fact that potentially we will talk about subjects or films that one of
not
us may
everyone's
never
gonna
want
like.
to. Yeah, we never want to see again. So to have that one chance where you go, you may have heard about this movie, but for years you
so
go,
much.
I don't want to watch that. It's nothing.
Yeah.
But then this comes up, you're like, oh god, typical men oppressing us women, making us do stuff that we don't want to do.
No, I suppose I want to sort of like kind of thank you really, because
You're welcome. Yes, that's right. Men are great. That's it. All cry out to us. Yeah.
No, I heard so much about it, but I've never thought to myself, it's not something I'm going to watch. So I have actually had to sit down and watch it. So, thanks for actually making me do that, so I can form my own opinion on it, rather than just listen to what other people say and go along with that and go, oh yeah, it's horrible, but it's not horrible. It's just so uncomfortable.
So when it comes to the bit which basically got this film banned anyway, which is the rape scene and everything, from a female's perspective and seeing KRUG's reaction after what he's done, how do you feel towards KRUG? Because I'm talking as a male, but I'm also talking as a parent, that if something like this happened to one of my kids, Matt said he would probably go in the corner. I would probably I'd be the opposite. I would probably go castrate the
I mean, in terms of the kidnap scenario, like, I'm not trying to big myself up here or anything, but like the idea of anything happening to a child that I'm aware of, let alone my own children, like it just shuts you down on some level. It's the fight or flight instinct. Like there's nothing that I could, that there's no amount of pain that I wouldn't be willing to inflict on another, and I would be well aware it was a human being. But if they hurt one of my children in the way that the characters are hurt in these sorts of films, I'd go to they'd go to their grave with my teeth in their throat.
Exactly. It goes back to that animal instinct.
Yeah.
You go back to even though we are civilized now, or we could argue whether we're civilized or not, it's never matter. But we've adjusted ourselves as human beings to become more civilized, but we are all deep down, we are still animals, and we will, if push comes to shove, if something happens, we would dig deep down into our deepest, darkest selves to do what we must to survive in whatever aspect it is. So yeah, just going back to Sarah, so what was your aspect with seeing KRUG's reaction to what he had done? How did you react?
It kind of makes you think, that you actually see the fact that he's actually regretted what he's done. You kind of feel like a little bit of empathy towards him, but at the same time, you shouldn't have done it in the first place.
Yeah.
I feel like he still got what he deserved.
Oh no, nobody's arguing against that. He definitely got what he deserves.
But yeah. But the fact that he actually did regret it straight away kind of proves that he might not be as evil as he made out to be. The fact that it's not just him. I mean, the other guy, Weasel, he's really scary. Yeah, and Sadie's pretty scary as well, isn't she? So having like those two kind of egging you on as well probably doesn't help.
Well, it's for the KRUG character, it's the ego thing as well, isn't it? He's basically he's got people bigging him up, but also he's scary enough to oppress them, to make them go, oh yes, you're great, you're fantastic, yes, do that again, kind of thing.
And then he's at the end of it, he's like, oh shit, what have I actually done?
Yeah. But then that's what happens to everybody.
Yeah.
Whether it's great leaders in the world, where Genghis Khan, or it might be more political, Vladimir Putin at the precise moment in time, stuff will happen. Eventually, something will crumble, and it will go tits up. It will go horribly wrong. It's not what they would want to happen. They have this great idea of where they want to go, but something's going to happen where it will go off course eventually, because nothing really ever goes to. Nobody's ever done anything in their life where they're like, that's gone perfectly to plan. That's exactly how I wanted it. There's always there's always something that happens that kind of you go, oh, that's not the way I was going to do it, but okay, it's happened now.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's that. So for you, you still feel an emotional connection for KRUG, but it's on a different level.
way,
In a different level.
sorts.
Yeah, different level for you than it would be for like a
Mm.
male kind of aspect.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Okay, Stephen, back to you. Back to you in the studio. Is he still there?
I don't know.
No, he's Stephen.
Oh,
Sorry,
I think
I'm
he's
on
mute.
mute. Yeah,
I was
that's
going to say, I
ridiculous.
think
Yeah.
he's muted.
This is the same thing at work. I work from home, and it's the same thing. You know, you're having a cheerful wank for half an hour, and then you think you're talking, you're back, and you've cleaned up, and you think you're talking to your colleagues, but you're still on mute, of course, because you've had all the German Scheiße porn on in the background. Anyway.
All I heard from that is really that you want to, next time me and Sarah are having a conversation, you want to listen in and wank. That's all I heard
want to
from
be
that.
caught as well. There's a desperate need to be caught. Yes.
Stephen,
okay.
This is a place of no judgment.
Yes.
At least no one else is
We're all
listening
your
except these
friends
three.
here, yes.
This
yes.
is a safe space, Stephen.
Well, there is that awkward thing as well, isn't there? There's a particularly fetching picture of Rose McGowan before she became a character from some kind of unseen Star Trek episode, where she stood next to Harvey Weinstein. Now, it's awkward because there's never been a more beautiful image of her. But is it wrong? A bit like, what's that film, Little Monsters? Do you remember that film, Little Monsters, Sarah, the zombie film with Lupita Nyong'o, where there's a hilarious masturbation scene where the guy really fancies her because she's a teacher, but the only picture he has of Lupita Nyong'o's character is with the rest of the class. So he's masturbating furiously to this and trying to block out the images of all the kids.
Yep.
So,
well, I suppose it's a bit like, you know, somebody watches porn, that if they're masturbating and you know, they're masturbating, watching the porn, and there's the woman or whatever your prerogative is. And do it as a straight male version. So the man's wanking away, and then the bit that he ejaculates on is the moment when the man's cock comes back up on the screen. Then it becomes that kind of, hang on a minute.
Yes.
Amateurs, I'm old enough to remember when all you had was the 10-minute free view before the encryption kicked in.
Yes. Yeah. Oh God, there's 1 minute to go.
I would like to clarify that all of us men here do not watch porn. Sarah, on the other hand.
No. Some of us use the shower scenes from Schindler's List. So, anyway,
to me,
the last
I can see why though. It's beautifully shot.
It is. It's very artistic, isn't it?
Yes. I presume that's what you were going with.
Yeah, it's the cinematography. Yeah, God bless them. They shot at Auschwitz as well, which I think adds a certain luster. Anyway, so yeah.
Side attraction.
So yeah, that's, you know, I still think it's a very powerful film. The Last House on the Left, segue aside, and I do think we've said it already, but a massive part of that is, yes, the 2009 film feels like a movie, like a lot of those actually made by committee, just in the same way, and I do quite like it, but just in the same way the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake is shot like a Meatloaf music video, and obviously partly because of that and because everybody else looks like a catalogue model, doesn't have the impact of the still incredible 70s original. And this is the same, you know, you really feel something extraordinary is happening. It's interesting. The remake, which we'll come to, unfortunately, doesn't even attempt to include the humiliation stuff of the original, which is the piss your pants sequence, which is so upsetting. More so than the rape. The rape is, again, feels like the world is ending, but is very discreet. And I still maintain the remake is more exploitative than the original because it has all these weird close-up shots of the very young girls' body parts, you know. And this movie largely plays it off reaction shots, whether it be her face most of the time or the other members of the gang. And that's so powerful. But the piss your pants sequence is nothing. We've not seen anything like that before. This film, and probably not that often since, because it's such a horror. And the moment where the two girls are made to make out as well, and they're stripped, and that's, you know, that's so beyond what we're used to seeing. And the remake, totally understandable. There's no way a Hollywood remake, even though it shows a more graphic rape scene, there's no way it would go to the really the almost unwatchable stuff where they, the
Mhm.
piss your pants stuff, because that's not what they can do. And it's interesting that Hollywood is happy to show a more graphic rape than the original film, but wouldn't go there with the other side of it, which I think is destroying to watch 50 years on. Even some of the images of the blood streaking down her legs, the cutaways to the rapists. There's obviously the very brief shot of Sadie kind of weirdly playing with the intestines where they've gutted her, and the carving of KRUG's name on Mary. That stuff is actually surprisingly brief for a film that they kind of tried to cut it for a long time. I know one of the small cuts they made was to the piss your pants bit, because clearly they, and understandably, I guess, if you're a censor, fuck, what do we do with it? This is beyond
more pissing.
Slashing, more pissing. In fact, let's get them back in the studio. They'll be a bit older.
I want to be like Niagara Falls. Try again.
But yeah, so that holds up. But here's the thing, Sarah. So I think it really works. I think it works. I think this film is also very funny. And I think the stuff that I used to think, what the fuck? Because I've watched it a few times, and this is the first time I've watched it for a few years, expecting to almost dislike it, because I remember thinking, well, the movie's really disturbing. And then the sheriff turns up, and there's a guy doing an impression of a frog, and there's a woman with chickens. What? But given what it was, given that they were set out to be bad boys, let's make the craziest, most outrageous film we can make. Where's you're very young, you've not yet made Scream or anything. Let's just do it. I think it actually works. I think the parents being ridiculous works, and the sheriff turning up, and maybe, just maybe, you need that.
Yeah, it definitely proves it. On the remake as well, because that's completely devoid of any comic element at all.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I like the whole like police department bit is absolutely hilarious throughout. Ada with the chickens is hilarious, but I'm still not sold on the parents.
But they're meant to be shit.
I do think that maybe like the guy that then went on to make Home Alone probably got quite a few tips on watching Last House on the Left, or what the father did, like to set up the traps and stuff to trap them, which was kind of cool. But the rest of it, no. I feel like they obviously at the time they didn't necessarily know that Mary had been killed. They find that out kind of, well, obviously before they then set everything up, but they don't seem that distraught. I think that's what it is with me, like with the whole acting thing. They don't seem massively upset that they've just killed their daughter, but they'll go and get a chainsaw. I know they then go and get a chainsaw and shit like that.
Easily, comfortably.
But there seems, there's no panic, there's no tears. The overacting is ridiculous when the mum sees the necklace that Mary gave Junior. That's the most ridiculous reaction I've ever seen before in my life.
See, Sarah's more concerned about that. The thing that I've noticed, because I watched the unrated, the uncut version, then I watched the KRUG cut, then I watched the rated version of this, all in the same week.
Right.
The thing that I noticed was, well, which one is it then? Is the phone not working, or is the phone working? Because in some scenes they say the phone's working, and then they go, well, the phone's not working now. But you just said you made a phone call with somebody. So which one is it?
Oh yeah, I didn't get that bit.
I don't know.
No, because at the beginning she goes, well, I rang up the telephone company, so obviously the phone's working now. They ring the police, but then when the police come over, they go, well, I'm sorry to hear your phone's not working. You just said it was back. They just rang you.
You
which
rang
one is
me.
it?
Just use their mobiles. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, what the hell?
And yet, something I just observed, just listening, like we've been talking consistently about this 1972 one, and like these are kind of like the cinematic equivalent of like bum notes in music.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what I think makes it memorable. That's what I think why, they'll probably be talking about this film in another 30 years. We're barely struggling to articulate the 2009 one. Like we're damning it with faint praise at best.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I agree with Sarah. It's not a film I would watch again.
The original or both?
It's the 2009 one to me suffers from what I call the kind of Blumhouse effect of horror filmmaking.
Yeah.
Like it feels very much like a production line. Where they're like, okay, so we like it wasn't a remake done because someone had like, I have this burning vision of what Last House on the Left could be. We're just doing it because, hey, you know, we get to keep the copyright for another 30 years, which is why they're now doing another, you know, they're now redoing The Strangers. They're redoing The Crow. Not because of a burning need to present this message to a new audience, but it's because some producer wants to maintain the copyright for another 15 years.
Got to keep that intellectual property somehow.
Yeah, whereas we can talk about, you know, the ridiculous stuff that happens in the 72 version.
Yeah.
Because there's ridiculous stuff that happens in life. Like it's more is it the term cinema? You have to forgive my mangled pronunciation. Cinema verite.
Yeah.
Like it has that kind of like the clumsiness and like the continuity errors.
Yeah.
And also as well as booby traps are again a thing with Craven because Nancy turns Viet Cong in the third act of Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. People,
you know, she gets one book and she turns her house into like this death gauntlet. You know, whereas before she spent 90% of the film running and screaming, then all of a sudden she gets one book and like, you know, it's just like, But, and yeah, probably an early influence on Home Alone.
Well, here's a question for all of you. We're talking like rape revenge films, and I'll ask Stephen something in a minute. We've all seen I Spit on Your Grave, I'm presuming. The original one. Okay. So there's the rape scene in that one. There's the rape scene in The Last House on the Left. Which, obviously, they're both disturbing films, but which of the two rapes do you find more disturbing? Because The Last House on the Left has music going over the rape scene, whereas the rape scene in I Spit on Your Grave has no music going over. So which one do you find more disturbing?
The I Spit on Your Grave one.
Yeah.
Personally.
I'd say that. Yeah, I'd say that as well.
And I think, Pete, you know, the lack of music, like it's you know, I mean, not to say that the one in The Last House on the Left is a chuckle fest by any stretch of the imagination, but like, you know, it's. I think the key thing is there's a lot of major films out there that use rape almost as titillation.
Yeah, they do.
And it should never be like if I say it, it's the laziest fucking hack move you can do as a filmmaker, writer, ever. Rape as a device. Yawn, you know, try again.
Yeah.
Precisely because it is just the most vile thing you can do to another human being.
What about you, Stephen? What's your aspect
between
on the
two?
Between the two? Which one do you find more shocking?
Well, I Spit on Your Grave is maybe in Sarah's category of something that I've no interest in watching again. However,
that's a shame. Next episode is going to be a whole thing about I Spit on Your Grave.
However,
we're having a whole year of rape revenge films.
I think it's.
Don't make me watch it.
That's a sequel. Well, I Spit on Your Grave and I don't watch it.
I won't watch that film. And they remade that. Oh, God, Sarah, they've already remade your I won't watch that film thing.
Shit.
Exactly. Shit, they've already remade that. Literal shit. Yes,
that's a prequel.
Turd. I Spit on Your Grave is, I would always defend it because I think Camille Keaton's remarkably good in it. And I think it does the right thing, as we've suggested, of portraying it as an absolutely harrowing, completely non-exploitative ordeal with no music, long shots from memory. I've not seen it for a while, but long shots, static shots, making it as uncinematic as possible, which is the way it should be, and doesn't, as Matt suggested, doesn't always happen in Hollywood equivalents, including, I would argue, the remake of this film. Which is very different in the way it's shot. But at the same time, the rape in I Spit on Your Grave goes on so long. It seems like, it might not be, but it seems like the first half of the film. The revenge is so dull and also drawn out, unlike this film where I think the revenge is kind of a thigh-slapping good time, including the comedy blowjob where she mocks the size of his cock. And I just numb to it. Yeah, I'm much more disturbed by the short music notwithstanding, by the short sequence in Last House, and it is very short compared to I Spit on a Grave and Last House on the Left, particularly maybe as it's preceded by the other stuff, how they're made to suffer before they are actually violated in that way. So yeah, I Spit on a Grave, it's lost me. I've already tuned out. I either want to fast forward it because it's going on so long. I'm just, I get it. It's horrifying, and there's nothing wrong with the way it portrays it.
And I think, Stephen, something you said is like, I think humiliation is something like, like as men, as men, sort of like rape is rape. We know rape is abhorrent, and yet it's something that men experience. But it's a fear that I think is writ large in women's psyches way more. Whereas humiliation is an entirely human experience, and the piss yourself bit was was vile as the rape, because we all know what it's like to be humiliated, either as children or as adults. There's never a good point, if you're ever humiliated, that you think this is fine. And I find those scenes. Have you ever seen that film Compliance?
Oh, that's absolutely astonishing. Yes, with the
Like very,
fast
very
food
little
restaurant round the
actually
back.
happens in that, but God, that film messed me up.
Compliance is, I would argue, more disturbing than these films. It's harrowing.
It was a true story as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. He's on the phone. Pretending to be the voice of authority. Yeah, Compliance is outstanding. Not a horror film, but it might as well be.
So it's kind of like there's layers of what they do in the original to the victims. Like it's kind of like Craven makes the case of, okay, if you hate the guys for this, you're going to hate them even more for this.
Yeah.
And then it makes, it then sort of gives it, like, it lights the blue touch paper. So anything the parents do to them after that point, you're just on board with completely. Even with like the humanization, the momentary humanization of Hess, you're still aware of all the stuff they've done, and you're like, man, that's not enough. And I think that's a key subtlety to it. Whereas I Spit on Your Grave is awful because rape is awful, but there isn't the nuance, and it's weird to say in a film like this. There's nuance in what Craven achieved than what a lot of other rape revenge movies have.
So, does anybody have anything else they want to say about the first Last House on the Left before I ask Stephen a question?
Well, what about the? So I think the second half is rollicking good time. I think the dinner table sequences. There's two great dinner table sequences in horror cinema. One is the harrowing, nightmarish, hellish dinner table sequence in the proper Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is, every time I watch that, that's like this film actually, and like Pete said, the sense of, I think it was Pete, but the sense of, Hess possibly was going all method with it, and maybe was a bit scarily getting into the part of KRUG. But Texas Chainsaw's dinner table sequence feels like they're all really going insane, including the girl we're rooting for. But the dinner table sequence in this, I also think, is a great moment. I love the unconvincing idea of David Hess and co slicking back his hair. The absurdity of them pretending to be, I think it's insurance salesman or something like that.
Yes,
insurance salesman.
And it's such
they
a
are
Craven
plumbing
sequence.
insurance salesmen.
Yeah, exactly. And they're enjoying the indulgences of the rich, he's quaffing fucking red wine and accidentally belches during the ruse of them pretending to be respectable. I love that. And it's very much class conflict stuff is in so much modern horror. There's a film called Lady in a Cage, made a few years before this, which is absolutely harrowing. And it's such a preview of Last House on the Left, because it's Olivia de Havilland, Olivia de Havilland, Hollywood royalty, trapped in a cage, hence the title, but being terrorized by this gang of youths, who she likens to offal. She actually calls them offal at one point because she's very rich. They're very not rich. And yeah, I just love that dinner table sequence. I think it's fantastic. He's there going, "What the fuck? You know, you people in China eat with sticks, and you've got a dozen different utensils for every pea." I just think that's great. And Craven, as we said, The Hills Have Eyes has a very I've forgotten the line of dialogue, but it's something like the cannibal guy or the mutant guy says, "You know, you come out here, you put your life in my face." It's the two different families that are brought together. And actually, well, David Hess has got a point. You know, what the hell? You know, this bunch of fucking, you know, the parents aren't sympathetic, only sympathetic because you want them to kill off and castrate or chainsaw the horrible people that have done this to the daughter. But you don't otherwise have any time for the parents because they're so out of touch. You know, after the Manson family, they're totally out of touch with what's going on with America or their daughters. He's looking at her tits. He's appalled by her saying the word tits. So yeah. Oh yeah, I think that was it. Actually, I've just got myself worn out now. But yes. What about the music? I actually, do you know what?
Yeah, that's where I was going to go in a minute. Was Stevens actually met David Hess, which I presume must have been like a Fright Fest event or some other Euro horror type event, I would have thought. So
Yeah.
you got any little stories you want to tell us about him? Because I presume most of the time when David Hess was out doing convention things, he would usually play a song or some. So did you have any of that when you went to see him?
Yeah, very much so, man. And I do like I like the fact. I mean, it's from that era. Like, if you think about it, this is 72. So, The Graduate and Easy Rider. It's from that era where there wasn't an awful lot of orchestral scores in big or small movies until Star Wars came along and it was so a lot of movies like The Graduate and this had song scores. It wasn't just a music score. It was also we've got to have a bunch of songs in here as well. And I like it. I actually think the ridiculous, it seems ridiculous, but the baddies theme where it's, I've forgotten how it goes. It's almost like the theme from Bonnie and Clyde, which again kind of, or because they've got such a cool theme tune and because they kind of look cool riding around, you almost want to root for them, but they're killing people, god damn it, so we can't root for them. So I almost feel like the music, some of the songs, obviously there's the sad ones as well. Oh, now you're all alone. Oh, but the jaunty baddies theme almost feels to me like that's his section of the film. Like they've created, or David Hess has created this theme as if this film was on KRUG's side. I quite like that. Anyway, which, and it's fun as well, in between the humiliation and horror. But yeah, David Hess, weirdly, I met him twice. One of the first events I went to was an event called Cine Excess in, oh, Jesus Christ, I've just forgotten where it is. Hertfordshire, Welwyn Garden City. That's it. And spookily, he was also there with Gunnar Hansen, and it was quite weird.
Wow.
And you're quite right, you know, with David Hess in both events, because the other time you're quite right as well. He was at Fright Fest, I think, because he was in a film called Smash Cut, which came out. Yeah. It was a new film. I mean, David Hess sadly died quite young, but he made a few later films. And yeah, you're quite right. You know, there's a sense of a get on stage for a Q&A and, oh, well, and I just happened to bring my guitar. You know? Oh, wow, what the chance to sing us a song. And you realize, and he tells you stories, and it turns out he wrote the song Speedy Gonzales. You're like, what the fuck? He wrote songs for Elvis. And he wrote, and he's happy to tell you that. And so, you know, 20 minutes of him going off, oh, yeah, oh, we've got to move on. Come on, David, we've got to, you know, it's another film show. Oh, what? You know, but yeah, he's an interesting guy. He was quite funny. He was happy to do a tune, but whether or not it's because of your foreknowledge of the kind of characters he played in Last House on the Left, and let's not forget as well Hitchhike and House on the Edge of the Park.
Oh yes,
he plays a very KRUG-like figure in that, which is also quite a disturbing film, and maybe not Sarah, but maybe one for another time. It's actually, well, quite different maybe in some ways, but yeah, no, there is still something about him. Whereas Gunnar Hansen, who was there with him at one of those events, Gunnar Hansen was this very grandfatherly, cuddly, and awkwardly flirting with the girl I took to the first event, which I thought was quite.
You shouldn't take your mum then, should you?
Exactly. Come on, mum.
Dad's you seen Stephen's mum? I'd take her places.
So it's you. I knew it. She was talking about someone.
What can I say? I'm not mated with Stephen.
Oh, those pictures! I didn't realise that was your cock. Yes, and anyway, yes. So Gunnar
Googly eyes, I
Hansen,
know.
both of them have obviously
It
terrorised
adds
us
to
for a
the
generation.
charm, I tend to find.
Oh, you painted a little face on him as well, which I thought was quite nice. And yeah, he's like a granddad. David Hess, though, however much Leviton, he was also with the Throat Fest. He was also at the pub afterwards and things like that, joining in with the karaoke and stuff. But even so, there was still something pretty intimidating about him, rather than Gunnar Hansen, who I just thought was like my granddad, and he was quite lovely. There was still some edge about David Hess in real life, from what I remember from so long ago. That I thought, yeah, still wouldn't want to be in a lift with you, because you're probably a nutter. Probably not true, but he had that edge, which totally comes across in the films he was in, not just Last House, but the later ones. But then he was, probably a tough guy, been around the block with movies and everything. Yeah. And they're both dead, which is actually quite depressing. But yeah, Sarah, Gunnar Hansen, you'd want to give him a cuddle. David Hess, thanks for signing me a pick. I'll be off now. Fucking hell.
Yeah.
Let's get going.
Yeah, I did see Gunnar Hansen literally just before he actually passed away. It was like a month or so before he passed away, because he came to HorrorCon.
Yes.
That was the first HorrorCon I went to when I saw him there, and I did think he was lovely then. So
Did you get to say hello?
no, I'm too scared. I don't do that.
Oh no.
No, but I did go to his. I went to his Q&A session and stuff, which was really interesting. And he was just up there, just being friendly and taking selfies with people and stuff. It was really nice.
Just to clarify,
Yeah.
Sarah, are you scared of meeting the people, or are you scared after you see the price of how much they're asking for an autograph? You're like, oh my god!
Oh hell no!
I'll take a photo of you from a distance. That's cheaper.
Yeah, there's pretty much, very much so, very much so like that. Yeah, and the only person I've ever queued up for hours for to see was Bruce Campbell. So, and I nearly chicken. Yeah, nearly chickened out 3 times, but I managed to stick with it, and I actually met him, so I was very proud of myself.
Roll it back. Just remind me, because it's important. He was really lovely, right?
Bruce is amazing. He's really sweet.
Yeah. And that's enough for us to go on, really, isn't it? Because if you'd have said he was a total shitbag,
that's what you're scared of. Yeah.
Sarah, if you remember, Stephen, Sarah did say to us that they had a private exchange where she got to sit on his lap, and she asked him, stick it into my backside. She said, well, that's my boomstick.
The thing is, for a long time after that, I assumed Happy Finish was his next film, but turns out, I'm so sorry, Sarah. What happened there, of course, stays there. But if you want to talk about
it's
it,
a bit late now.
I'll get his number. He's so lovely. Well, I've never met him, so I don't know. But I'm just going by.
He is lovely. Bruce Campbell is lovely. He's amazing.
Everybody I've ever known that's met him, I've always said the same as Sarah. I've never heard a bad word said about Bruce Campbell. Not saying there isn't. There's probably, like anybody, there's probably somebody else kind of shit all over him. But I've never.
Literally.
I know.
Oh man, that's disgraceful. Who would shit on?
You pay the right amount of money to struggling actors. They're gonna take what they get.
True. I'll do it for 20p. Yeah. Oh, but you know what? Yeah, I feel bad because two of the first people I ever met that were in horror was Michael Berryman, who was incredibly nice. He was the softest, gentlest person of all time, really lovely. And Tom Savini was a bit grumpy, and I felt bad because for years I just remembered him as being really grumpy when he did the signing and stuff. Not great when he was doing the talk, but in the face-to-face stuff, a bit.
Yeah,
dour.
that is the trouble of meeting.
Sat
these
there
things.
All day,
Yeah, there's that.
Exactly.
But for you, when you just handed over your hard-earned money or whatever for an autograph or a photo opportunity,
That's true.
they're being really shitty, you're kind of like, don't know if I really want to follow your career anymore. Could
you not just fake it for another person?
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't it? Because they do make money from those events, otherwise they wouldn't go. The only other one, I mean, pretty much, and it's often the horror guys that are the nicest possible people you could ever meet. But the only other one I can think of that was a bit cold was very cold was David Carradine was randomly at the cinema store in London when it existed. Didn't look up. didn't look up while he was doing
Oh,
his
rude.
bit, So it was like, oh.
I've done other things. I'm not just kung fu.
Yeah. I love you, man. But otherwise, I mean, if people like, I never met Wes. I met Toby Hooper, who was ridiculously nice. Almost embarrassed. Oh, I'm so sorry, being very British about it. Oh, I'm so a bit of a twat from Britain, but could you sign off it? Could I have a picture as well? But he was so
Toby
relaxed.
Hooper doesn't sound like that.
No, that was me.
Oh, I see.
And it was the same for Romero.
Romero had the same voice. Christ, I thought they were from different parts of the
sorry,
country.
Mrs. Patterson. British joke. But yeah, those guys were so nice, and while I was bumbling over the attempt to, chat to them, absolutely happy to jaw with you or take a picture or whatever. But yes, yeah,
You
don't go
do
meet
kind
David
of-
Hess. He's dead.
Yeah, I was gonna. Well, yeah, there is that. You do kind of think that like people that portray characters like that, you probably think twice about approaching anyway.
It's powerful, isn't it? Yeah.
Mm.
Whereas Bruce is more of a buffoon in films.
Yeah.
So I suppose it's different, but even so, he's still a star.
Yeah.
There's the intimidation of just that on its own.
Well, anybody, whether they're a writer, musician, or even behind the scenes in filmmaking, a cinematographer of it, everybody's a star in somebody's eyes. So
Yes.
somebody can go out to Stephen, someone go out to Sarah, someone go out to Matt and go, I
that's
really like
good.
your work, I really enjoy your stuff. That's that you at that particular time, you're their idol. So
yeah,
everybody's got their own thing. It could be somebody small, lower down type person, or it could be somebody, Hollywood status. Everybody's got their own icon.
I mean, they say you shouldn't meet your heroes. For the most part, precisely for some of the reasons Stephen's articulated. Like, I did Yarmouth. I was a guest at Yarmouth Comic Convention last year, and honestly, like, just the fact of people, like, I had people buy. I was selling the Lightning Thesaurus, like by hand, and I had people sort of buy it on the Saturday, and came back on the Sunday, and tell me they liked the book. And literally, if I could bottle a feeling, and synthesize it and sell it, I would make Walter White look like a corner shop owner. Because no word of a lie, it's the most wonderful feeling. And if I'm, I work, it's not hard work for me. Like, I put a lot into it, spend a lot of time. You have to get over the fear of, you guys all know, you have to get over the fear of missing out to produce stuff.
Yeah.
And I sort of think to but I also understand as well that maybe for some of these guys, they're doing it for a long time. They're tired. They're old. They're far from home. But but holy shit, what a privilege that is.
Yeah.
And I'd be like a puppy on, I'd be like a puppy injected with synthesized serotonin of just like, I am so happy that you enjoy my stuff.
Yeah.
And I think just a bit of I just think, like, surely for, how long's an appearance? Couple of hours?
Yeah.
Surely you could at least fake it, because to you might be having a bad day, but that person has spent money, traveled to come and see you because of a piece of art you made maybe 10, 15 years ago. And it's not me having a go at them, telling them to shut up and perform for me, monkey. It's very
free
much
monkey boy dance.
Yeah, it's very much like you got to understand, like, you're in an incredibly privileged position, and maybe you should try and enjoy it a bit more. And I work towards that point, and in that smallest little taste of it, I'm just like, if I'm in this position where I get to do these regularly, I made myself a promise. I'm never going to get cynical about it. One of the reasons why we talk about and write about and go to these things is because there's joy in it.
Yeah.
There's the mundane stuff we all have to do, go to work and deal with all of the crap that pops up in life, and yet for an hour, 2 hours, that all goes away when we watch something or read something or play something. And, you know, it's one of the most powerful expressions of the human condition. And yet sometimes, you know, you get experiences where you're like, wow, this person's an asshole. And like thing for me the last few years with social media has killed my appreciation and respect for a lot of artists I used to love, because I didn't know how stupid and ignorant some of them were. Like Hollywood actors. Like, do you remember when all you knew about Hollywood actors was when they do the occasional interview in their films, right? Did you find you liked them a hell of a lot more than you do now? I'm the same. Like, I know way more about some of these people. I used to enjoy their films. Now I'm just like, I cannot even watch you and stuff, because I know if I pay money, I'm contributing to the degradation of standards in the universe because of some of the stupid shit you say.
It's a shame. It's a real shame, isn't it?
You know, I just like, you know, I sometimes think that some of these people in entertainment and media, perfect example, Stephen King, right? We did a 3-hour podcast, and basically, like, you know, there was a point. If Stephen King said, "Matt, would you blow me?" there would have been a point where I would have at least considered it, of how much I loved this stuff. Then I discovered Stephen King's social media account, and I'm just like, wow, you are just an angry old man now.
Oh, that's a shame.
You should see Stephen's. Christ.
Stephen's social media is a thing of beauty, Pete. It should be stitched on a sampler and hung in a museum.
I don't know what social media you've been looking at. You should see his Twitter. Christ, he's an angry old man, shouting at clouds. Down with these young people. God, anybody under 40 shits all over them.
Stephen's Twitter is the most erotic piece of fiction I've ever read in my life.
I know that's his pseudonym one. That's a different one.
Oh, that's
it's got like 20 burner accounts by now. He's getting ridiculous.
And I follow them all, Pete.
My God, that's passion.
Stephen is the name for God in my heart.
And this project has suddenly become sick, disgusting, degrading.
Oh no, it's very, very erotic, actually.
No, but just like this, yeah.
Oh, Stephen. Oh, I don't think I follow Stephen. No, I will stick to the books.
No, just don't follow him on social media, please.
No, don't follow yourself, Stephen. That's just egotistical. I have to follow myself. Yes, look at me.
It's healthy.
I wonder what I put up on social media today.
What crazy stuff am I getting up to this week? Look at my lunch. Yes. Yeah. No, that's a good lesson there, actually. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Well, constantly people see. I don't follow a lot of the celebs and stuff, but a certain different Matt that I know, who this Matt knows also from past work endeavors, will usually point out, oh, you love so and so, but turns out, last year he shagged a rhino. Oh, well, now all I can picture is him shagging a rhino. I mean, that's obviously quite sexy, but still. Yes, there's always someone
you're picturing it. My question is, how did he do it? Was the rhino
exactly.
lying there? I want to know more details. So you'd be like, that's disgusting. I'd be like,
rhino?
But it is disgusting, but I also want to know how he did it. Was the rhino standing up? Did he get a stepladder?
Carefully, Peter.
Did he have lipstick on? The rhino, that is.
Well, you don't do the rhino from the front, because that's just horny.
Oh, what about the foreplay? Surely you'd have a bit of a kiss.
No.
A neck nibble. Do rhinos have necks? Wait a minute. I'm trying to picture a rhino. This has gone to a very dark place, and actually a sexy place as well. Rhino.
You've never seen a rhino?
Gentlemen, horror
start with the horn.
We start with the rape horror genre, and then we talk about shagging rhinos.
Hang on. Bear with me. Just gonna go properly like this.
How do we not do Joe?
You'd wine and dine it first, wouldn't you? You'd treat it mean. Treat it keen. No, what the hell? That's something else. Anyway, well,
back to Last House on Left. We got degraded by Stephen's erotic porn.
Yes, I'm sorry if anyone's overtly aroused right now. Yes. So, I mean, we have touched on it a little bit, quite a lot of it actually, on the Meatloaf music video version of The Last House on the Left, 2009. So this was in the period when a lot of these kind of grungy, gritty, nasty, scarring films like Texas Chainsaw had been remade already, or if they hadn't been remade, they were kind of being remade in the form of homages, like Cabin Fever uses
Yeah.
songs from Last House on the Left and
Yeah.
is trying to kind of recreate that, but is quite tongue-in-cheek about it. And Rob Zombie's films are obviously, Devil's Rejects especially, kind of aggressively trying to recreate the harrowing style and approach of things like Last House, and quite well, I think. I think the Devil's Rejects, maybe more than almost anything else,
It does have a
captures
very
that.
uncomfortable moment. Yeah.
The motel
Yeah.
yeah, really uncomfortable. Yeah, and it also, and unless I'm remembering wrongly, it also has a lot of comedy, like Michael Berryman talking about chicken. What is it with chickens? I'm sure there's a
Yeah.
whole bit with Michael Berryman and chickens.
Yeah. No,
Got
you're
to have those
right.
chickens. There's always
It's got
comedy in
yeah.
chickens.
There's got to be some kind of comedy chicken moment.
Comedy gold. We need more chickens. And hence Chicken Run, the Nick Park animation. Hilarious.
Absolutely.
Pies
Absolutely.
go in,
That's a good one.
chickens go in, pies come out. Classic. So anyway, like Chicken Run, this remake of Last House on the Left, not as good as the original. But yes, so this is the sexy version of Last House on the Left. So everybody's very attractive. Even the
Mm.
parents. Even the parents are very glamorous. They've been through a lot. They've got a dead son who's there for sentimental reasons. There's some nudity in the tradition of the 70s stuff, which you don't usually, I mean, the Scream movies, no boobs in those because don't want to put boobs in the movies now, we get told off. But this movie has some nudity, but notably not from Mary, who's now played by Sarah Paxton. But there's lots of kind of slightly dodgy close-up shots of her different parts,
Mm.
Her armpit, her
Oh,
crest
Yeah.
between her elbows.
Crevice. Look at that! Look at that elbow!
That's any
yeah.
pointier and hard, it would just turn me on even more.
There
Yes.
is. There's a lot of kind of cool. Look how toned her belly is.
Yes, there is a lot. There is a lot of that.
Which, and again, I think I said earlier, this does feel like a more exploitative film than the original. It's not ugly because it looks so great. It looks so lovely. It looks so slick and beautiful. It's beautifully shot with beautiful people, including Aaron Paul, Garrett Dillahunt, and whoever plays Sadie, who's not very
Riki
interesting.
Lindholm, who
Yeah.
like she I mean, you're right. It looks like a music video, doesn't it?
Yes,
Mhm.
entirely.
You know, like
Where's Meatloaf?
it's not so well shot that it makes you go wow. It's kind of like, oh, that's pleasant. Like, and in one sense, like, the 72 version, it shows you, it makes you feel the horror of and the violation of what's done to the victims in it. Whereas this one, you can just watch this and have it on in the background,
Yeah.
while you're having a sandwich and you're not in the least bit offended. Perfect example, right? Is the ending. So in the 72 one, there's like the electrocution booby trap, and then he chainsaws him. But in the 2009 one, it's I've paralyzed you with several selected cuts, and I'm now going to blow your head off.
Villain.
Like it just
Well,
feels.
Well, before you guys turned up to do this podcast, me and Sarah was having a conversation, and we was talking about the microwave death ending. And it's like, I don't know about you, but my microwave does not work unless the door is shut. So how does their microwave
found
work?
the manual. He's tweaked it.
Okay.
Satisfying either. If someone
it's
had
not
hurt
really.
my kid, I wouldn't be like, "Hey, I could do something fun with a microwave here." I'd the chainsaw thing felt a lot more like, do you know what? I approve of that as a dad.
Yeah.
Whereas like the microwave one, again, it just feels like, and it's almost endemic to a lot of like mainstream filmmaking now, is you get a room of educated but inexperienced people chucking around. I think so much of the sins of like modern cinema now is, hey, that's cool, with no other thought beyond, wow, that'll be cool.
It's a moment. It's a moment. It's not a
content.
We want
Last House, the film.
Yes, most things now are we're not making a film that's going to be remembered. It may be remembered by some, but majority of it's a moment. You remember that specific moment from a film. There's nothing really else to the film. There's no fabric to the film. It's no real major plot. You just remember a bit, which in a way is good for the filmmakers. But if I want to watch a film, I want to remember quite a lot of it. Not just go into, oh yeah, it's that film with that bit happens in it. That's it. I'm not going to watch it again.
Oh, no way.
I don't think you're meant to with the 2009 one,
No.
are you?
No.
You know, it's kind of like, have you ever been around, you know, this again is probably me showing my age, when people actually physically had DVDs, right? And you go around to someone's house.
You should go to mine. Stevens has me, and Stevens got loads of DVDs.
You guys are cool.
Same.
Like sometimes when you go to somebody's house and you see that they've got a particularly DVD in their collection, you're wondering, why did you buy that? Like, you know, like Deep Water with Christian Slater and Morgan Freeman. If I saw somebody had that in their DVD collection, I would immediately be like, why do you have this film?
Wow.
And that's how it feels with this 2009 one. It feels like
it was in Poundland.
You know.
One of the films that's in my film collection, I have, as you would have thought, mostly horrors in mine. But one of the films that's in mine, there's two that people, whenever they look across it, always go, "That's a bit weird." You know, if I ever went off the rails, they'd be, that's the two films that set them off the edge. Is Mean Girls with Lindsay Lohan.
That's a classic.
That.
Yeah, and then the other one is Miss Potter. That's the other one that was sent people up. Miss Potter. It's about Beatrix Potter, because my mum was a big fan of Beatrix Potter. She named me after Peter Rabbit. So, so I went to the cinema to watch Miss Potter.
There are some similarities.
Yes, the buck teeth.
Mine is where the wild things are, simply because I've got it on Blu-ray and it's my comfort film.
Yeah, see, everybody's got one, but
yeah,
when people think of a horror fan, you just, you know, there's devil signs all over the place and heavy metal.
Yeah, that's all you have in your DVD collection is horror movies. You don't watch anything else.
And that would be weird if that was all there was. I thought it's the same with music, isn't it? It'd be weird if what you listened to was ABBA, like me. Yeah,
that's weird.
So
and other stuff.
just to flip this conversation on the other side, because been quite male dominated this podcast, and I know testosterone. I know that Sarah is the opposite inclined for these films, so we're
talking about. Sarah could kick the shit out of all of us.
Well, I have an advantage. I'm miles away.
She works with horses. Come on, those horses
big
are
and
lovely,
dangerous,
but they will fuck you up if you look at them. So therefore, I stand reason. Sarah is the one of us. I'd fight you two in a heartbeat. I wouldn't fight Sarah. She's a woman. She works with horses. She would mess me.
They did. Yeah, man.
Do you know the one that killed Christopher Reeve?
No, I'm afraid not.
We'd want to get that back, wouldn't we? I mean, we love horses, right? But still, kill Christopher Reeve. That's shocking.
So, Sarah.
Hi.
You can take the lead on the this version of The Last House on the Left, because I know that you prefer this one over the original version.
Yeah, afraid to say I do.
So, what is it about the remake that you prefer over the original? So this is 50 years between that one, between the original going into now. So probably in like 30 odd years' time, we'll have another remake and we'll do another podcast about the three versions of The Last House on the Left. So we'll all have a version we like. So what is it about 74. This? You won't be 74. You'll be 104. Don't lie about your age. It's rude. You lied to your missus about your age when you bought her in the magazine, and now you've got her over it. That's because all she is. Birthday. That's all she is. I'm gonna keep putting ABBA on all the time. She goes, it's not again. Meatballs for tea again. Oh, great.
Oh dear, I'm
gonna where do we get to? Sarah. So what is it about the remake that you prefer over the original?
I think they put slightly more detail and emphasis on some of the characters. So Mary in the original, you don't know a lot about her. You get to know more about the Mary in this one. She's quite an ambitious person. She's an athletic person. She's a swimming champion. She's just lost her brother, as we've pointed out. So I think you get to know a little bit more about her personally, and kind of the same with the with KRUG and his kind of gang as well. They're more of a family. They're kind of quite disjointed in the original, so they seem to be more of a family. So this one, rather than KRUG's brother being the young one, they then choose to use his son. So KRUG in this has a young son who he kind of uses to lure the girls. Well, he kind of they end up in a motel. The young boy, what's his name? Justin.
Yeah, in the
in
remake it's Justin, but in the original one it's Junior.
It's Junior, yeah. So Justin is the junior character here, but yeah, he's like a teenage boy, kind of the same age as the girls, and he just basically there's no like heavy metal gigs or anything. They're just the two girls. Mary goes to meet up with her friend Paige, who is the Phyllis character. She works in a shop. They see him in the shop trying to buy, I don't know, or trying to steal stuff. They try and make him like buy it and stuff. They ask him if he has any weed. They then go back to his motel room to just smoke and get high, and that's when KRUG, Sadie and Frances, who is the Weasel character, then turn up and kind of basically kind of against, Justin is more sympathetic. He's more of a sympathetic character than Junior is, because Junior's portrayed as a bit of just a wasted junkie, really, isn't he?
Yeah.
Whereas with Justin, he's kind of a downtrodden kid that's just like got a horrible father who's basically bullying him, and he has no say in anything. They use Justin to get to the girls. They try and humiliate Justin just as much as they do with the girls, which just totally destroys his self-esteem. There's just nothing to him. He's just like a tiny little mouse person. And the family of Mary's parents and stuff, I feel like have more compassion towards her. They're more worried about her when she goes out. I guess it's probably because of the time as well. Obviously in the 70s and stuff, they're talking about it being the age of peace and love, and everyone's supposed to go out there and love each other. They don't really, they don't seem to think that kind of stuff's going on. Whereas further on in the future, this kind of time, people are more aware of what happens to young girls and stuff. So the parents are genuinely worried about her before anything's even happened to her.
Yeah.
And I feel like Paige gets killed, and then obviously they then rape Mary and stuff, and she manages to escape this time by swimming. So they kind of like take back from the beginning. You're like, oh yeah, you've learnt that, that she can swim, so she can swim. She manages to swim back to the house where the parents actually find her, and because the dad's a doctor, he kind of fixes her up, and then they go absolutely nuts, and you can actually tell that they're really, really upset about what's just happened, and they know that Justin's trying to tell them what's going on because he leaves the girl's necklace behind. It's just I feel like it was a better way of doing it than it was in the original. I know they wanted to keep things kind of short and sweet and the pace going, whereas in the remake it kind of drags out a little bit because of that, but I feel like they kind of set the scene up a bit more for a modern time.
Do you think it was done deliberately to make it more palatable for like normies?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I get that.
Well, I was going to say, in regards to the KRUG and all that, in the original one, there's a very brief bit where the radio plays and they tell you that these escaped convicts are out, and it tells you exactly what they've done, so you have an idea of what they've done before. So, but in this new one, they don't say what their crime is. So to me, there isn't as much of a threat. You don't, because that in the original one, the Francis character, Weasel in the original one, was a child molester and all this kind of stuff. And
you don't know anything about that.
Sadie kicked the crap out of a dog and all this kind of stuff.
Shepherd.
Yeah. Whereas in this one, you don't really know anything about them other than their KRUG's going to prison because he's with two police officers, and that's it.
Yeah, I don't like the beginning of it either. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, out of the two films, I do actually prefer the 2009, but I don't really like the 2009 one either.
No.
It is, like Matt, you said earlier, it's easily forgettable. Because I thought to myself...
Very diplomatic of you, Sarah. If you don't like one of them, hate them both.
Yeah, pretty much. I just dislike the remake slightly less. But yeah, like Matt said, when it came to doing the podcast, and they were like, well, we're going to do Last House on the Left, my brain went, oh, I've not seen either of them. And I saw the remake first, and when I went to put the remake on this week to watch it for the podcast, literally as soon as it had been on for a couple of minutes, I went, oh yeah, I have actually seen this one before.
Yeah. Do you think some a lot of it is like, you made a really good point there, Sarah, with like there's a lot of assumptions. Do you think it's because they knew the audience watching it in 2009 when it came out? We're a lot more media literate these days than people would have been back in 1972. You know, so like, you know, the film, the screenplay probably went like, well, we don't need to tell we don't need to spoon feed the audience these people are bad.
Yeah.
You know, well, we can show him looking like, you know, we can suggest he's a child molester without actually showing it. I think because these days, like you think of how much information we're bombarded with. Like, our brains are constantly trying to forget stuff all the time, aren't they?
Yeah.
To preserve neurons. So as a consequence, we know and assume a lot more because we've all watched a ton more movies, because it's literally like it's the equivalent of turning on a tap.
Yeah.
So we're a lot more media literate. Well, we are, because we're special and beautiful. But you know, even most, I hate using the term normies because it implies we're better than them, even though. But even like, you know, the average person will have seen a ton more movies because you'll have Netflix and Amazon Prime and 57 channels than you would have done in 1972.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a good point. Part of what makes the 2009 one quite bland. Which is a weird thing to say for a film that deals with rape and familial revenge, you know.
So, Stephen, you watched the remake in the cinema, didn't you?
Yeah.
So, was it a packed out cinema? Was it a few people just dwindling, thinking, oh, we're seeing a Texas Chainsaw Massacre remakes out, the Hills of Eyes remakes out. It's a lot of that 70s nostalgia remake movies coming out. Was this one of the ones that people actually kind of went, oh, definitely want to go see that? Or was it just like you and that one weirdo is always in the cinema?
Hey, that was my nan. Yes, no. Was it full? Was it fuck? No, it wasn't. I mean, again, it's like I think I said earlier, I don't really see what they possibly thought was the audience for this. I mean, you know, what does Last House on the Left mean to typical moviegoers in 2009, other than the horror fans or the video nasty fans? Not a lot. I mean, I think it came and went, really. No pun intended. And it was, and to be honest, I didn't mind it in the cinema because I watched it. Remake Last House on the Left, strange choice. I'd really liked and still like the Hills Have Eyes remake, which I thought they did a good job. Mostly because that one, it brought a little something different.
Yeah.
Also, crucially, it wasn't dull like this film. But rewatching it, especially after watching the first one, I guess if it wasn't called Last House on the Left, it would shape up as an adequate 90s style, one of those Hollywood thrillers that was really kind of a slasher movie, things like Hand That Rocks the Cradle kind of thing, where it's a bit bland, it's got big stars, everybody's attractive, but it ticks the box and blah blah, you know, this goes into that slot, and at the end everybody hits each other with shovels until the bad guy dies. But as it's called Last House on the Left, and as I'm watching it again in the week that I watched the original, I'm going, well, what's the point? I mean, this is so boring. Why is it 2 hours long, or almost 2 hours long?
It is nearly 2 hours long.
You know, you're insulting us quite early on with one of those shit Hollywood scares of, it's someone tapping at the window, but it's just the cleaner or somebody like that.
That bit's very, very, very pointless.
And there's, we've got car crashes, and there's a thunderstorm that lasts for about an hour, you know, just to make it more dramatic. And Mary fights back and she runs away in slow motion to an orchestral swell. By the way, I do think the best thing about it is the score by John Murphy.
I was about to say, Stephen does like the score to this film.
John Murphy, man. John Murphy did things like 28 Days Later and the sequel. And recent stuff like, well, he did Sunshine, the Danny Boyle stuff he's done is really good. But
Made a great cop as well.
Kick-Ass. Murphy, he was RoboCop.
Exactly. See,
I mean, he turned to composing because his arm was blown off and stuff, and he was a robot. But still, the score by John Murphy has some beautiful moments. And I remember buying the soundtrack back in the day. Yeah, shocking but true. But yeah, the rest of it is so padded, and there's nothing going on. Sarah Paxton is a really good actress. Actually, she's in a Ty West Innkeepers, which is a really good ghost story, and she's in a cracking film called Cheap Thrills as the wife of Pat Healy, I think.
Yeah, that's a good film.
It's a great film. Strangely, Pat Healy who's the guy on the phone in Compliance, which we were talking about earlier, which is extraordinary. So Sarah Paxton's really good, and she does what she can, but I'm not invested in these people any more than I was in 1972.
No.
Including the bad guys, who I think are really dull. I mean, I just don't get it. I don't get the point. It's a bit like, I mean, I actually quite like the Assault on Precinct 13 remake. Isn't bad. Ethan Hawke's in it. It's quite good.
Yeah, I quite like that one.
But it's still like, well, I could just watch the original.
Yeah.
And they leave out all the shocking. They don't have. I mean, because they can't. I guess there's no kid killed at the ice cream van, which is one of the things you remember from the original. Who will rewatch that version when you've got the original? And who were they expecting would make it a big hit? Because it wasn't. I just don't get it. So I was mostly bored this time around. It is gorier than the original, so it does have the entertaining stuff in the last kind of act of the waste disposal unit with the fucked up hand, and it obviously has, and it has some, the Sadie shot in the eyeball, and the comical microwave massacre at the end.
Yeah.
Which seems like it, oh shit, the ending's a bit boring. Oh, right, what if the microwave?
The microwave, you remember the microwave bit we talked about right at the beginning of the movie? It's coming back. And it's the whole bit.
To me, it's the whole, right, if they're horror fans, they know that Greg Nicotero and Howard Burge is involved. There's K&B effects are involved in this, so they know there's going to be some
be a head in the microwave
effects. So we need something to explode. We haven't got that in the film anywhere. Where do we shove it at the end somewhere? It'll be fine.
I think the thing that cracked me up the most was when he paralyzed the guy, like KRUG, and he wakes up and he hit the guy goes, I can't feel anything. He goes, yeah, we didn't have any tape or string in the house.
Yeah.
So, and I'm a doctor, so I paralysed you instead. To just be like, right, if you don't have tape or string or anything in your house, just grab a doctor. Can you just paralyse this person for me and then stick its head in the microwave?
As somebody that's quite environmentally friendly, I applaud him for his great use of being environmentally friendly.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well,
good use of resources.
Didn't it feel like the only reason they made his character a doctor was so they could, it felt like they came up like again, it's the whole wow, that's cool thing as a driving force behind making a film, and I like to think that it does matter. You want spectacle and entertainment, but it felt like they came up with that idea and then kind of retrofitted his entire character to justify that particular action,
and probably saving his daughter as well, because obviously like the father in the original is a doctor as well, but
yes,
she's gone before he can get there. But in this one they went, she's been shot, she's made it home, he's a doctor, he can save her.
And that means the stakes are so low. The whole point is that she's dead, well, but because of the soap opera backstory of the dead brother, you already know the suspense is gone. You already think, well, would she really die in this version? Because if they've lost their son, it seems a real stretch to kill her off as well. So
test audiences.
That's
probably it's probably that I think test audiences and where they announce the date that a film is out before they've even started putting a word to the screenplay are two things that are crippling like mainstream cinema.
And have for a while,
Yeah.
Oh, it's a shame, isn't it a shame LL Cool J is dead and Deep Blue. Wait a minute. what's that bubbling in the water? LL Cool J, he's alive.
because we tested and people like him, and
He's
also
so
we stick
funny.
his face on, because we're doing like a merchandise deal with McDonald's. It's like,
Yeah.
what about just making a good film, guys? Is that a radical concept for you now? Like,
Yeah.
like with a lot of the mainstream stuff. I don't know if you guys watch Red Letter Media's channel. Something he said that really resonated with me. Isn't it great being old enough to see all the franchises you enjoyed as a kid being ruined? I love it. I just wake up every day and go, all those years I spent being bullied for like in Marvel comics. And now the guys who bullied me are really into them, but they're into the shit stuff. And I can't even explain to them when it was good because they were too busy flushing my head down the toilet. It's like being bullied all
Yes.
over again. And and I
Such
watched like because they
bastards.
had like the Disney Expo, didn't they? And I'm like, why are we still letting like middle-aged men who wear baseball caps unironically determine the future of like major sets of modern mythology?
Yeah.
And like films like like the 2009 one, yeah, probably in one sense it's technically better because technology, media awareness, and stuff, but it's not memorable.
No.
It doesn't get under your skin the way the fact that Sarah switched on the 2009 one and realised I've seen this before.
That says
That's
everything.
not a good
It
sign.
does, yeah. No.
Yeah.
So, is there any other pluses to this one that you prefer over the original one, then, Sarah?
I'm just trying to think of the more plus. No, I think that's kind of it on the plus side. You think I'm now being reminded of the stuff that is just dull and bad. The going back to the beginning of the film, the police car sequence. Me and Stephen were talking about this beforehand, weren't we? About saying how I just thought it was like particularly vulgar, just the way like the policemen were talking and stuff is unnecessary and just gross. And Stephen was kind of like, yes, because it's like he's trying to be like Rob Zombie or something. I was like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Trying to it's trying to add shock value into a film, like Matt said, that's kind of very Blumhousey.
Yeah.
We want to be this, but we also want to be this. We want to hit our target audience, but we also want to try and keep this audience at the same time.
Yeah.
How can we do that? We're gonna say pussy and fuck a lot.
Yeah,
My
we're
God,
just gonna have some disgusting cocks to start off with. Yeah, I mean the rape scene and stuff, like Stephen said, is it does go on longer and is probably more graphic than the original. It's still uncomfortable, but it's not as uncomfortable. But you don't want it, rather it was a little bit more the way it was in the original.
Yes.
There's nothing particularly upsetting. I think it's the way it comes off, the way it's cut is actually almost more titillating, which obviously is far from the original. I think it's such a big error of judgment. The Rob Zombie gets away with it. Rob Zombie's a smart and interesting guy that's just fascinated, I guess, by that kind of trailer trash stuff, but does it with wit. And I think that does show in things like The Devil's Rejects and actually in the Halloween films that I would always stand by.
Every podcast he has to bring up Halloween, doesn't he?
To be fair, I do think though that is the one trick that Rob Zombie has, because judging by what I've seen of the monsters, I think is going to be the asteroid that crashes into the planet of his career.
That's out this month, isn't it?
Yeah, and it looks cheap.
That's not what Stephen told me. Stephen said it's possibly the best film that Rob Zombie has made since Halloween.
Stephen has been replaced by the pod people.
Again?
Go watch The Monsters.
I'm going to withhold judgment
I thought it was
until
a joke.
I watch it.
I thought it was a joke, but I've seen the trailer and it looks cheap it looks cheap for Netflix.
I think I said this in the last podcast when we brought up The Monsters. I think the trailer is intentionally cut the way it is because Rob Zombie likes to be away from the norm of how things are normally done. So he's cut the trailer specifically in the weird way that it's done because people look at it and go, that's weird. and it sticks with you because it's not the ordinary way of a trader. It comes across more as a credit card advert.
I don't know. I thought, you know, I enjoyed Devil's Rejects.
Hated Halloween 2, just like Stephen. Yeah,
I didn't like his Halloween. I thought David Gordon Green's done a far better job. With Halloween, we've taken Halloween on than Rob Zombie did. Devil's Rejects I liked, but anything else from him, I really wish he would stop casting his fucking wife in everything. Someone needs to tell him his wife cannot act. You know, you get a better performance chucking a chair in the middle of the room. I just you know, I get it. You know, every great artist has their obsessions, but stop casting. Look, it's like, was it? No, not P.T. Anderson, because he did Magnolia, and that guy's a genius.
The
other one. Stop casting Mila Jovovich and everything. The joke is no longer funny. You know, if it was a joke, which is even sadder.
She can kill zombies, that's for sure. Wait,
well, no,
and she can kill monsters.
No, his movies aren't jokes because jokes have meaning.
And zombies. Do you remember? Oh no, I won't go there. I was going to talk about Return to the Blue Lagoon when she was younger, but that was a teenage thing. It's okay. How about that, Brooke Shields?
We'll save that for the secret podcast, Steve.
So, is there anything anybody else want to say? Anything else about The Last House on the Left? Either version.
Monica, the cast is beautiful in the 2009 version.
Oh, phew, for a minute there.
Yeah, you know, but David Hess's hair in the original one is a great example of 70s actor hair.
The landmark.
Yes.
You just look at that and you don't need to say anything else. You instantly know that is a film from the 1970s.
Yes, but is it from up above or down below? That's the question.
Oh,
the thing is, Pete, back then it didn't
pubic
matter.
thatch.
You know, look. You know, back then the ball throw was a genuine thing of beauty. You know, we've lost that kind of like David Bellamy-esque tonsure elegance.
Nice.
So I think it's important that we recognise how much hair there was in 70s cinema. Whereas now, you know that if they took their clothes off in the 2009 one, they'd all look like Barbies, just single hair. You know, just I'll tell you.
I was out their nipple as well. Very disturbing.
I'll tell you what the 2009 one reminded me of. Did you ever see that? Because do you remember when WWE were doing movies and they did that one with Luke Evans?
They still do movies. It's just they're usually terrible.
Yeah, they did one with Luke Evans where basically it was kind of like a couple get kidnapped by an angry gang, but twist. For some reason, the 2009 one really reminded me of that. In like, it looks beautiful, you know, the special effects are competent, but for the life of me, I couldn't remember much about it 2 minutes after it ended.
No one lives is what it's called.
That's the one. See, I couldn't even remember the title. I've talked about it, could tell you stuff, couldn't remember the title.
But in WWE's way of marketing things, they have done something right because you remembered it was made by WWE.
Yeah,
they've got the marketing bit right. It's just they can't get the films written out right.
I'm not hating on them for it, but that sort of horror movie, you know, really became a thing for a while.
Yeah.
And I think that's why like people sort of were drawn more to. You know, when you get things like Martyrs or Switchblade Romance or things like that, like it's almost like you build up a tolerance because it becomes a little bit mainstream, and then if you're a fan of horror, you're like, well, it's not really doing it for me anymore. But and then we're at a really nice point now where you've got stuff like that which you can ignore, but then you've got like filmmakers like Ari Aster, you know. You're getting genuine auteurs now, which is absolutely fantastic and really, really healthy. So, you know, and again, to tie everything up, it goes back to what Craven was an auteur. You know, we'll be talking about his films in another 30 years, I'm sure. Whereas, I mean, Dennis Aliadis, who?
Yeah. Well, he was actually handpicked by Cunningham and Craven. I don't know why.
Because he's safe.
He's so French.
Yes,
Is
exactly.
he French?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's French.
Greek.
Yeah.
He's Greek.
Oh, he's Greek, is he?
Oh,
Mhm.
no offense intended there. Not racist.
I should have got the guy who did Mandy.
Oh man! Oh, Cosmato.
Oh yeah,
Panos
that's the
Cosmato.
guy.
Is it too late to go back and yeah? Oh,
We
yeah.
built the time machine, Stephen.
Well,
We
don't
could.
worry. In 30 years' time, he can do the remake of this
Oh,
remake.
God's sake! It's just boring, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
And actually, actually, it's a better film. But I remember quite enjoying the Texas Chainsaw remake in the cinema, and I rewatched it, and it's fun and thing, and this happens. But it's the same thing, really. It's the same syndrome. There's not the sense of shit. This must have been a terrifying set to be on, which you get with both Texas Chainsaw original and Last House, because it probably was, because they were doing it on the hoof. They were making shit up as they went along. They were all in their debuts or near debuts. Some of them are hardcore porn actors, as in Last House. Anything could have happened. And it kind of feels like still, even though you know what's happening, it kind of feels like anything could still happen when you're watching the original.
Well, when you look at
Last
the credits for both films, the credits for the original film, it lasts less than a minute. The
Yeah.
credits for the new one goes on for like 5 minutes. I bet Craven's probably looking at it when he made it. Christ, I didn't have these many people making the film when I was with it.
Well, exactly. Yeah, in '72, Craven would have been washing Hess's cock and everything, but now it's Gareth Dillahunt's ear hair manager.
Exactly.
Sarah Paxton's thing. Yeah, exactly. It's a
So,
shame.
I guess unless anybody's got anything else to say about Last Stand Left, we shall bring this podcast to its climax.
Oh, yeah. No, that's it. Well, they are what they are, aren't they?
Well, everybody's got their favourite out of the two.
Yes,
And there's no right or wrong answers, because every decade's got their own different version of what they like.
And you know what? I think I totally get Sarah's thing of actually I'd rather not watch both, because
I don't want to watch either of them ever again.
They're not exactly, of an evening when you finish work, you think, Last House on the Left, which one should I pick? Actually, neither. Let's fucking watch Evil Dead 2 instead.
Yeah, absolutely.
So absolutely. I totally get that, and probably that's the most sense, because even though I still think the ridiculous comedy stuff kind of works, only because it's not the horrifying humiliation stuff. I wouldn't necessarily this past month have chosen to have watched the very good Wes Craven Last House on the Left, or the remake, which I kind of remembered as being okay, because neither, well, they're just they're like, oh, right,
yeah,
time to watch something cheerful.
I will say something about the original version, mainly in regards to Arrow Video, who have gone out and made probably what will ever be the definitive version of the Last of Us Left release, because I don't think there's anything else hidden in any archives anywhere that people are going to go, oh, I really want to see that, because there's some extras on this one where I'm kind of like, maybe they should have added some music to it. There's a bit where it's like nearly an hour long just dailies bit of the stuff that they cut out for movies. There's no sound to it, so you just sat there watching an hour of people just reenacting things over and over again. It needed something to it. So what else can you add to it? Add to a movie that, as we discussed, has its lovers and haters. There's probably more haters of this movie than there is lovers. I doubt there's many people, like Stephen said, you know what I really fancy watching today? Last Answer on the Left. Not any of this. I fancy watching a Marvel movie or whatever movie takes your float.
Mean Girls. God, she was great, wasn't she, Lindsay? She still is. She's not dead, Lindsay Lohan. She's still out there.
She's still alive.
I hope she's okay.
She doesn't even go to this school.
I love Mean Girls. That could be a spin-off.
And that's why you love your missus.
Oh, yes, exactly.
Nice segue, Stephen. I like that. I like that.
But yeah,
it's a shame we couldn't class Mean Girls as horror, because I think we could probably sit and talk about that for a good few hours.
Mean Girls and Bring It On.
Yeah.
Oh no. Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's
so. So
It's
yeah,
amazing.
that's yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, and I just think the original is just fascinating because of the era. I think that's what makes it, because it was right after the Manson murders. They have a character called Sadie, just like Sadie and the Family.
Hmm.
Um, and Craven talks in those extras on that fantastic Arrow. We're not being paid off by Arrow or sucked off or anything by them, unfortunately. But still, the great addition of that, Craven talks about how the original script had Sadie cutting off the breasts of a character and eating it,
Yeah.
which
What?
is so tied into that era of excess. But also,
Mm.
if you look at the original newspaper reports of the Manson murders, it's full of hysterical inaccuracies,
Oh
like,
yeah,
for
there's
example, Sharon Tate in some of those early newspaper reports it was said her breast was cut off, which never happened. It was said that there was stuff carved into her stomach, which didn't happen.
yeah. So like I
So
say, there's
it's so much a film of its time, which I
even
think is good.
even when they do like potential biopic movies of the Mansons and all that kind of stuff, it's always even more exaggerated than what actually happened.
Mm.
Because it's more the name. People hear the name, they go, "Shit, what the hell's going on there?"
Yeah.
But if you
Yeah.
actually looked into it and actually looked at the history and what they actually done, you'd probably be less shocked, I think,
Mm.
than what they actually did. You'll still be shocked, but less shocked than what the media was portraying to be as the monsters that they had. Yes, they were monsters, but they wasn't the big monster that the media was
No.
portraying them to be.
Well, yeah, and they were actually a bunch of losers, really. I mean, if the interesting thing is the episode of Mindhunter that featured Manson. There's a big kind of rumble about it. Oh, next season it'll be Manson, and in that episode, he's revealed to be well, he's just a bit
A
of a
bit of a
boring,
tit.
bit of a
Yeah.
twat, you know.
Have you guys
He's
ever read Bugliosi's Helter Skelter?
is
No.
that the is I've read Helter Skelter. Is that the only Helter Skelter, or is there a different one?
That's
The
the one
original.
I'm referring to.
It's an incredible read.
I genuinely, because and another thing, I don't know if you guys listen to the last podcast on the left, which I'm a really
No,
big fan of,
no.
and their Manson episode's fantastic, and really, it's just like the problem was like he managed to sort of get all of these people in one place, and he was kind of like, yeah, man, do you? But obviously, as they were goading each other on, I think he just got way out of his depth and
Mm,
lost control of them, and that's when it
yeah.
escalated. Because he had all the race war stuff as well, but
Mm,
Yes.
he just I think if somebody had gave him a record deal, none of this would have happened.
yeah, that's the whole thing, isn't it? But
You
God's
know, there's an alternate universe where he's doing like a Super Bowl halftime show, or like he's hosting a podcast. Oh man, I did some crazy shit back in the '60s.
I'm doing a duet with Beyonce.
Yeah,
That'd be
exactly.
bizarre.
that
touring with Elton
collaboration with the
John.
Beach Boys. Yeah, yeah, entirely. No, that's why the original would always be just a historically fascinating film, and that's even before you get to the censorship stuff, which is
Mm-hmm.
something that dragged on forever here. And do you remember, Pete? Was it Exploited Video that spent a lot of money and time taking them to court? The BBFC, that is.
Yeah.
It was was it David Gregory, because there was a
Yes,
massive ongoing court
David
case,
Gregory runs Severin Films in the UK.
and they
So
lost it, didn't
yes.
they? They lost the battle for about 20 seconds. I think at some stage only 20 seconds was still being cut from the film,
Mm-hmm.
and they were appealing that decision because they said it's ridiculous, it should be uncut. And hilariously, on one video or DVD of Last House on the Left, you could still see the cut footage, but only in the form of still images.
It
So
was
you're like,
DVD. It was
yeah.
remember Anchor Bay? When
Yeah, Anchor Bay, that's it.
Anchor Bay was the big DVD company.
Yeah.
But yeah, they put it out. You had to this is the uncut version. It wasn't uncut. It was still cut. It was just that bit that they cut out was now in a special feature. So
Yeah.
they can get away with it.
Which is kind of astonishing. And then, bizarre now that, Last House on the Left, and you can watch it anywhere, buy it anywhere you like, and the remake, more graphic, more rapey. It's on Netflix. Things have changed. That's it. That's it, though. That's enough kerfuffling around this.
Yes.
So It's been fun, hasn't it? Talking about the Last House on the Left and
Yes, the Jolly
Last
Ride
House
that
on
is
the-
Last House on the Left.
Yes, good.
I don't know
fun
why
was had.
I don't know why Disney haven't bought the rights for it yet.
Please don't threaten me with nightmare fuel like that, Pete.
I wonder if Netflix will do a version with a snarky, wisecracking Ryan Reynolds in the lead, because there's not enough snarky, wisecracking Ryan Reynolds films on Netflix.
You mean like an original take, like sort of like a Deadpool type character?
Please don't
Yeah.
make
Is that what
me
you
cry.
mean?
Oh, I get the joke. He knows he's in a film. Oh, Ryan Reynolds knows he's in a
hilarious.
film, and he knows he's in a Ryan Reynolds film. And he made the Green
I'm
Hornet.
not tired of them breaking the fourth wall at all, because they do it so
No.
well.
Last House on the Deadpool Left coming soon.
Okay,
Yes,
I'm going to go weep now for what might have been.
it is tragic. Hey, though, thanks for listening, of course, and great news. There'll be another episode next month. When is October? The Queen will still be dead.
Yes.
And we'll be doing, obviously, a celebratory podcast, not just about the Queen being dead, but about it being Halloween. We're going to be looking at, we've already mentioned him, actually, Matt, David Gordon Green's Halloween, the fabulous Halloween Kills. And if we've seen it, because it's coming out on October the 14th in the UK, at least.
Yes.
Norfolk, maybe later. I think it's due in 2017. Yes, because we're going backwards.
Yes, I was wondering when you
little
going to
joke
get back.
Halloween ends. Yes, that's right. Halloween ends. It's the
Also,
end.
Trick or Treat is getting a limited cinema release as well, isn't
I
it?
heard about
Yes,
that as
Trick or
well.
Yeah.
Treat is great.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous that it never got one in the first. Do you know what? Oh, this is maybe running a little bit long, but I saw Trick or Treat at Fright Fest when John Landis was in the audience because he was there for some special event or something. And he was very abusive because Warner Brothers had fucked it. They'd totally fucked over the director, Michael Dougherty.
Yeah.
And they sent it straight to video. And he was heckling. He was fuck Warner Brothers during the Q&A. So horrible. And it was such a great experience watching it. And it's a fantastic film. Trick or Treat is great.
So with the next episode, we will be watching which film, Stephen?
No witch films. We'll be watching the Halloween films. No time for witches. We'll be watching Halloween.
But will we be including the original Halloween?
Oh God,
to go in with these other Halloween films?
Do you mean the original remake or the original?
The original
or the original
Halloween
remake.
The original Halloween. The very first Halloween.
Oh, we've got no time for John Carpenter. Sorry, John. He's busy playing video games anyway and smoking dope. Yeah, we'll be watching and talking about the David Gordon Green. So good, he's got 3 names. We'll be talking about the 2018 Halloween, the Halloween Kills, the sequel, which of course is the best one so far. I genuinely love that one, by the way. And hopefully, if we've seen it in time, if the Norfolk cinemas can grind some kind of life into the projector, the last surviving projector, Halloween ends. It's all over. No more Michael Myers with this one.
Well, yeah, right. Yeah,
remains to be seen.
He's going
he's got
dementia.
In fact, John Carpenter has already said, he got asked in an interview, do you think there'd be any other Halloween films after this? He said, "Oh yeah, he'll be back." So I maybe you didn't get the marketing press release for this next one to say, remember, he's definitely dead. He's not coming back. We need to make loads of money.
Well, there's a great thing, isn't there, where Mustafa Akkad, he died, didn't he? But
yeah,
I know his son has taken over. But there's a great thing where somebody says, well, Mustafa Akkad was producing it for years and years from the beginning, in fact. And then Carpenter was like, fuck it, go and do whatever you like. And Mustafa Akkad took it, and he admitted, you can do whatever you like with the Halloween film, but he can't die. So you have this endless series of films. Oh, he's connected to the Druids now. Oh, and he's got a niece. He's got a niece in Norfolk. Oh, shit, Christ! He's got a half brother in Scandinavia. He's in the snow. Yes. So, but I think this series is pretty good. I particularly like Halloween Kills, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do.
With the end in big quotation marks.
Oh. What do you think Michael's end is like? I bet it's scaly. I bet he doesn't even wash his face.
To be fair, considering how old he probably is now, I'm surprised he's still got the ability to even run or anything now. He's probably like,
Well,
oh my god,
he's
crink.
probably. I think it's going to be about Michael's struggle during the cost of living crisis with his energy bills. I think, fucking hell, I'm gonna got all these jumpers. The
So
grandchildren.
you're saying the
ignoring
next
me.
one is Halloween struggles.
Just him shuffling around Lidl 10 minutes before closing, looking at the reviews to come.
with the bad COVID.
Him in one room of his house, the rest of the house shut off, and he's just sleeping in one room just to keep warm for winter.
Yeah.
Eating toothpaste. Yes, exactly that. Yes, that's it. It's Pensioner Myers. Here he comes, old man Myers. Oh, scary once, you know.
So
I'm shitting
yeah,
my
that
pants.
that would bring this episode to an end. But this episode could only end in one possible way, Stephen, and that is with us all saying the last house on the left line, which is remember,
Piss your pants.
Only a movie.
Oh,
It's
I
only
thought
a
you meant piss your
movie.
pants. Sorry, that's embarrassing. Because I just
No, Stephen. Remember, Stephen, it's only a
Yes.
movie.
Only a movie.
Sarah,
It's only a movie.
Matt,
Keep telling yourself it's only a movie.
and we all rejoice together and say it at the same time, and then Stephen can sign us off. It's only a movie.
Movie.
It's only a movie.
Movie.
It's only a movie.
Only a movie.
Only a movie.